Good morning. I will now call the December 8th, 2021 regular meeting and sanitation district meeting to order. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that one supervisor is participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson? Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Here.
Supervisor Desmond?
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas here.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher here. Next on the agenda is non-agendized public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on matters that are within our jurisdiction but not on today's agenda. The only action the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. A reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public who are non-English speaking and need interpretation assistance will get additional time to facilitate that. In order to ensure we can get through our agenda, we will be limiting the initial public speakers on non-agendized public to 5 in-person and 5 phone callers. Any remaining non-agendized public communication will be resumed at the conclusion of our agenda today. I'll ask the clerk to call forward a maximum of 5 in-person and 5 remote speakers at this time.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 15 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 4 in person and 11 by phone. For those that requested to speak via phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. I'd like to invite forward the following individuals: Summer Light, Robert German, Consuelo, and Katie Meyer. Come forward in any order, and if you could please state your name for the record.
Summer Light. I'm here on behalf of the San Elijo Hills communities and the Elfin Forest communities. We want to thank you again, Mr. Desmond, for requesting last September the landscaping of an eyesore created by Public Works consisting of large amounts of asphalt dumped on buffer land outside the San Marcos landfill. To date, Public Works has lowered your request to what they term view enhancement. And what they've done is they've covered the bright orange sandbags with a darker color. While we appreciate efforts made, this has not solved the many problems this project created. 1, homeowners still smell asphalt. 2, Grove owners have serious concerns about this asphalt polluting their organic groves. And crumbles of asphalt is coming through the BMPs. 3, it is still quite an eyesore for homeowners, hikers, dog walkers, bikers, and horse riders. 4, the BMPs that were put down to block the asphalt consisting of rolls of straw are a significant fire hazard. 5, asphalt still remains in abundance over a large water culvert. 6, this project has created erosion problems and maintenance costs. 7, boulders tossed in the ravine, stated by Inspector Torres, will create puddling, a mosquito problem for residents nearby. 8, residents don't want reclaimed asphalt leaching into buffer land that was creating toxicity in an area zone for protection. The 10,000 residents of San Elijo Hills and the residents of Elfin Forest would like to see the buffer land stay in place and protect the communities from.
Next speaker, your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
And staff. My name is Katie Meyer, and I'm with San Diego 350, and I'm here to talk about how critical it is to stop the climate crisis and to stop sprawl development. This year, we are already experiencing a historic drought and are slated to have a La Nina this year. That is going to cause devastating droughts, and we have already experienced fires, heat waves, hurricanes that affected nearly a third of the nation, and the head of the IPCC called this a code red for humanity. We must take bold action on climate change, and especially around transportation and sprawl issues, which accounts for nearly half of emissions in the San Diego region. One major contributor to emissions is sprawl development, which the county has continued to delay implementing state law around this. Sprawl development puts families' homes in far-flung wildfire zones and contributes to traffic, carbon emissions, and increased pollution from more cars on the road. This board needs to make meaningful progress on implementing SB 743 and use the state's guidance as a stopgap on pending development while we work out further details. We must develop near transit and work to address the climate crisis before it is too late. Thank you.
Okay. Consuelo. This is a speech from a member of the European Parliament, Christine Anderson.
Governments have gone through great length to get people vaccinated. We were promised the vaccinations will be a game changer and it will restore our freedom. Turns out none of that was true. It does not render you immune. You can still contract the virus and you can still be infectious. The only thing this vaccine did for sure was to spill billions and billions of dollars in the pockets of pharmaceutical companies. Whenever a government claims to have the people's interest at heart, you need to think again. In the entire history of mankind, there has never been a political elite sincerely concerned about the well-being of regular people. What makes any of us think that it is different now? Never take anything any government tells you at face value. Always question everything any government does or does not do. Whenever a political elite pushes an agenda this hard and resort to extortion and manipulation to get their way, you can almost always be sure your benefit is definitely not what they had at heart. As far as I'm concerned, I will not be vaccinated with anything that has not been properly vetted and tested and has shown no sound scientific evidence that the benefits outweigh the disease itself and possible long-term side effects, which, to this day, we don't know anything about.
Nothing.
I will not be reduced to a mere guinea pig by getting vaccinated with an experimental drug. And I will most assuredly not get vaccinated because my government tells me to and promises in return I will be granted freedom. Let's be clear about one thing. No one grants me freedom, for I am a free person.
Good morning. My name is Robert Gurman. I live in Lakeside. I am a spokesperson for Citizens Against Gillespie's Expansion Low-Flying Aircraft. We support the Working Families Ordinance, especially for our county airports, which are on government land, spending government grant money, which should equal a living wage, especially for our San Diego airport workers and their families. Thank you and happy holidays.
Now we will hear from those that requested to speak by phone. Again, we'll be hearing from the first 5 callers, and the remaining callers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted, and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I would like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll begin with our first caller. Again, please state your name before beginning your comments.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Mark Wilcox. I'm a father, grandfather, and advocate for youth. The lead story in the LA Times yesterday was a U.S. Surgeon General Vivek H. Murthy, Public Health Advisory on the mental health challenges confronting youth. This is a rare warning and call to action to address what he called an emerging crisis exacerbated by pandemic hardships. Symptoms of depression and anxiety have doubled during the pandemic, with 25% of youth experiencing depressive symptoms and 20% experiencing anxiety symptoms, according to Murthy's 53-page advisory. Murthy wrote in preface to the advisory, quote, "Mental health challenges in children, adolescents, and young adults are real, and they are widespread, especially for students with disabilities and students of color from low-income families," end quote. The 53-page Surgeon General's advisory calls out those who surround young people and shape their day-to-day lives: schools, healthcare system, media, and government. The county's proposal to enable more marijuana storefronts will have an unfortunate impact on children by promoting and normalizing its use as a solution for stress and anxiety. This is not the time for such a proposal. Rural communities have not asked for them, and youth and their families will be harmed by them. Please follow the science and help protect our youth from this San Diego crisis in the making. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is KB Strange. I work as a pharmacist in District 5, and I live in District 3. One of our high school districts, and probably others, has dealt all this school year with indications of mental health struggles of its students, including threats of violence, bullying, and this past week, the most severe form of mental health struggles and other student suicide. As the superintendent wrote, quote, "This is tragedy for a family and a community. Personnel and mental health resources have been deployed to schools where the student may have had friends. Moreover, the district is working on a comprehensive plan to address the mental health challenges that our students are facing. We will get ahead of this, but it'll take time, dedicated resources, and commitment from everyone," end quote. It is this commitment to which I would like to speak. We need the Board of Supervisors to make a commitment to youth. Students need clear messages regarding how best to handle problems that are not short-term solutions. In other words, drugs are never the answer. Not alcohol, not tobacco, not marijuana, and not prescription drugs. I would suggest that the board's adoption of a ban on the sale of flavored tobacco products was a tremendous prevention message. Please add a ban of flavored marijuana product to that ban. And please show your commitment to prevention and to our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good morning, Supervisors. This is Kelly McCormick. I am a public health educator with a focus on youth alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana prevention. And I could not agree more with the two speakers who have just talked about mental health and marijuana, which is also the reason I'm calling. And with respect, I want to thank the board for the decision yesterday concerning the mobile mental health crisis teams. That's a wonderful effort, and one that you acknowledge is very much needed in San Diego County. At the same time, we need to recognize that marijuana is contributing to some of the mental health crises. And we're not talking about Woodstock marijuana. Today's marijuana is high THC. The most popular product is concentrates that are vaped and can be 99% pure THC. And that has a tremendous effect on the brain and can cause mental health problems, particularly for people under 26, which is also the people that this commercial product is marketed to. So I hope you can acknowledge and will acknowledge that promoting and allowing the advertising and increased availability of high THC flavored marijuana vape products is contributing to the mental health problems in this county. And please reverse course as far as allowing this industry to grow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Anne Riddle, sharing my perceptions regarding behavioral health here in our county. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to express some history regarding the creation of the Prescription Drug Abuse Task Force out of District 3, back then Slater Price's district. And I feel I also need to share with you the perception regarding behavioral health through the years and with its director, Nick Mascione. This department has worked tirelessly through the decades to bring prevention and treatment to our county. And I want to make sure the efforts of the past are applauded, as well as the decisions yesterday. Yesterday would bring us far more treatment, and this is a good thing. No one ever disagrees with this idea. The hard thing to do is prevention. Prevention has always been funded in a 1-to-8 ratio regarding treatment. Treatment has always come first in the way the funds have been distributed. Prevention is hard because it requires reaching youth before the age of 19, since we know 90% of all young people's drug use begins before 19. And it has to begin with the first drugs of youth choice: alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. Research suggests that the best prevention strategies include reducing the availability of these drugs, especially those dressed up in youth-attractive packaging, and to reduce the number of places that they can be accessed, and to make them more expensive through taxes and fees because youth are price sensitive, and to diminish the influence of advertisements, billboards, mailers, etc. Then suddenly, when these things are put into play, no one likes prevention. Alcohol, tobacco, marijuana retailers and their consultants and their attorneys fight electeds at every turn when prevention called.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next caller.
Rita Clement. Good morning, supervisors and staff. My name is Rita Clement, and I live in Nora Vargas District 1. We are experiencing a drought and moving toward an extreme water shortage for agriculture. We are expected to experience an abnormally dry winter this year. We need the county to take bold action on climate change, and especially around transportation and sprawl issues. Transportation accounts for nearly half of the emissions in San Diego, as you know. To achieve zero carbon by 2035, we urge you to adopt a new transportation study guide that uses regional average vehicle miles traveled. Your actions must ultimately be stronger than the state guidance and must be implemented quickly. Do not delay implementation of Senate Bill 743. Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. That concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
Next on our agenda is approval of the board meeting minute statement of proceedings for the regular meeting of November 17, 2021, and the County of San Diego Sanitation District meeting of November 17, 2021. Is there a motion? So moved. Got a motion by Supervisor Anderson, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Please vote.
Aye.
Please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas? Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of our consent calendar. Members of the public will be able to comment on the consent calendar before its adoption. But before we do that, let me go to supervisors and ask if they have any items they wish pulled for discussion or comments they wish to make, starting with Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to go ahead. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to make a motion on agenda item number 4 to approve the option agreement extension, but also direct staff to potentially negotiate a new option agreement with the National City Parking Authority, reserving the revenue for improvements to Sweetwater Regional Park and/or park improvements in park-deficient communities in National City, to supersede this option agreement and report back to the board before the existing option agreement is executed or expires. The reason for this is that the conversations regarding this agreement are decades old, and there may be some new perspectives to be considered.
Got it. So that would be an amendment to number 4.
Number 5.
Number 5, I'm sorry, number 5, and I'll just restate it so we all know. To approve the option agreement extension, but also direct staff to potentially negotiate a new option agreement with the National City Parking Authority, reserving the revenue for improvements to Sweetwater Regional Park and/or park improvements in park-deficient communities in National City, to supersede this option agreement and report back to the board before the existing option agreement is executed or expires. Okay, so that'd be a motion for the consent calendar with that amendment to number 5. Let me go to Supervisor Anderson.
Not at this time, thanks.
Okay. Supervisor Wasson-Reamer.
Nope, thank you.
Supervisor Desmond.
No items to pull, but I guess I would ask Supervisor Vargas, these are for city parks within National City, not county parks? Are they city parks?
City parks.
And this would be coming back to us for a vote before any action's taken on the city parks? Okay. So I just want to make sure we're not diluting county parks if there's comes from a separate pot. Okay. And then I have a comment on item 1. This is a purchase of agricultural conservation easement program. I want to thank staff for bringing this forward. The purchase of this agriculture easement will have a positive impact on local farmers and on San Diego County's continued agricultural production. Last year in 2020, the San Diego County agriculture economic benefit was almost $2 billion in the county for agriculture. So this program preserves viable agricultural land, which may be otherwise could be converted to something else. It provides a win-win by compensating willing property owners to preserve their land for agriculture to perpetuity. So I want to say thank you very much for this. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the amendment.
Motion. We need a second.
Oh, all right. I'll second it then.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor. I have no comments and no additional changes to the consent calendar. At this point, we've got a motion and a second to approve 1 through 5 with the amendment to 5. But before we vote, let's hear from the public. Any public speakers on the consent calendar?
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We do have 3 total requests to speak, all coming by phone. So in that matter, if any of the members of the public that requested to speak on this item by phone could please dial in now to the conference line using the instructions provided to you. And we'll give them a second to do that. We will hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I would remind callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We will begin with our first caller. Again, please state your name before beginning your comments.
Hey, good morning. Which agenda is this?
This is for the consent calendar.
Consent for what?
The consent agenda, 1 through 5.
Oh, crap. I actually called in for the non-agenda, and you guys get me.
Not a problem.
We'll come back to the remaining non-agenda public speakers at the end of the meeting. So just hang with us for a little bit, and we'll hear from you. Don't worry. Okay, next speaker. No other speakers?
Chair Fletcher, not seeing any movement in the call-in studio queue, I would conclude public comment on this item.
All right, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by Supervisor Desmond to approve the consent calendar with the stated amendment to item 5. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson? Aye. Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to our discussion items, beginning with item 6, consideration of adoption of Mcclellan Palomar Airport Master Plan update, an item our board has spent considerable time on over considerable meetings, and we will see if we can land the plane on this today. With that, let me turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Chair Fletcher.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me go to Supervisor Desmond
Yeah,
first.
thank
My
you.
apologies,
I received a correspondence on this item requesting my recusal from it. I've discussed this issue with council, and they've determined there is no conflict of interest, but I would like to ask council to weigh in before we begin.
Mr. Witt.
Yes. Thank you. Our office has reviewed whether a potential conflict exists related to Supervisor Desmond's prior employment as a Delta Airlines pilot, and we do not find any conflict, and the supervisor may participate on this item.
Thank you. Concur with that. With that, let me turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. I'm Jeff Monetta, Director of Public Works, sorry. With me this morning is Cam Humphreys, Director of Airports, and Leanne Carmichael, Program Manager for the DPW Environmental Services Unit. This item is a request to adopt the Mcclellan Palomar Airport Master Plan update, certify the program environmental impact report, and provide direction on sustainability. In October of 2018, the board adopted the Palomar Airport Master Plan and certified the EIR. Soon thereafter, a group filed a claim challenging the board's action. In January of this year, the Superior Court largely upheld the county's action. However, the court required narrowly focused changes that we will discuss in this presentation. In response to the court order, in May of this year, the board voted to rescind approval and directed staff to make the necessary changes. Staff has finished making the changes required by the court and has prepared options for the board's consideration. The revised master plan and EIR addresses the court's requirements. What hasn't changed are the development options within the master plan. While we will provide details on these options later, in summary, they enhance safety while remaining within current airport property boundaries, improve prospects for regional passenger service using small 30 to 70 seat aircraft, create potential for more jobs and economic benefits. While today's presentation will focus on the technical details of the Palomar Airport Master Plan, decisions made today will make an impact on safety measures of the airport, the potential return of commercial service, and sustainability measures that will guide the future operations of our 8 county airports. The Department of Public Works operates and maintains 8 airports located throughout the county at no cost to the general fund. 6 of these are in the unincorporated areas, while 2 are located within incorporated cities. Today, we are focusing on Mcclellan Palomar Airport, which is located within the city of Carlsbad. Palomar was constructed on county-owned property, and when it opened in 1959, the surrounding area consisted mainly of agricultural uses. However, over the last 60 years, light industrial, commercial, and recreational uses have developed around the airport. In 1978, the city of Carlsbad annexed the airport, citing economic benefits including tax revenues for the city and increased services for the region, and later issued a conditional use permit for its continued operation, ensuring consistency with the city's general plan. Over the last 6 decades, Palomar has provided essential services to the community and region. Palomar is certified by the Federal Aviation Administration, known as the FAA, for commercial passenger service. Historically, carriers offered regional service to Phoenix and Los Angeles, carrying up to 78,000 passengers annually, utilizing small 30-seat aircraft. Over time, these aircraft were phased out in favor of aircraft that are more efficient and quieter, but cannot operate at Palomar due to its short runway length. Today, the airport primarily serves as a business aviation hub. Palomar also provides facilities for a wide range of emergency services, including medical air transport, aerial firefighting, and law enforcement. All this activity generates jobs and economic benefits. Based on a recent analysis completed by consulting firm ICF, Palomar currently supports over 2,590 jobs, drives $461 million in economic activity, and generates $72 million in tax revenues in the region annually. The average wage in the air transportation sector is over $84,000. Of the total impact, over a third occurs within the city of Carlsbad.
Since Palomar was built, much has changed in the aviation industry. Aircraft are safer, quieter, and more efficient, and there have been vast improvements in the transportation system that supports these aircraft. The primary tool airports use to adapt to these changes is the master plan. A master plan is a framework that guides development to enhance safety and accommodate aviation demand over a 20-year planning period. The FAA requires a rigorous master planning process and a robust public involvement program. Palomar's last master plan was completed in 1997 and was nearing the end of its planning period when the board directed its update in 2015, directing a focus on extending the runway and enhancing safety for the aircraft currently using the airport. The FAA regulates the national air transportation system, provides airports with guidance and design standards, and airport owners and operators, such as the county, cannot restrict the type or size of aircraft that use the airport. The FAA generally provides up to 90% grant funding for safety enhancements. However, the county is not eligible for that funding without an approved master plan. Design standards set the shape and the size for critical parts of the airport to safely accommodate aircraft. Runway length, shown in blue, is important to ensure aircraft have adequate room to safely take off and land. The taxiway, shown here in yellow, provides aircraft access to and from the runway. The distance between the runway and taxiway, shown in white, is important to ensure aircraft have safe separation from each other. And safety areas, shown in red, are important to ensure there are services suitable for reducing the risk of an aircraft overrunning the runway. The FAA groups similar aircraft into design categories identified by an alphanumeric code. The letter represents the approach speed, and the number represents the wingspan. The higher the letter and the number, the faster and the larger the aircraft are within that category. During the master planning process, air traffic counts were used to identify the largest and fastest aircraft that currently makes regular use of the airport. This is known as the critical design aircraft. This aircraft's category establishes the design standards for the development alternatives in the master plan. At Palomar, older aircraft have generally been replaced by somewhat faster and wider aircraft that are more efficient, quieter, and have longer range. As shown in the chart, the critical design aircraft in the previous master plan was a Falcon 2000 and is categorized as a B2. Now, Palomar's critical design aircraft is a Gulfstream 500-600 series business jet and are categorized as a D3. However, the airport only meets the B2 safety design standards. Currently, over 40% of the business jets based at Palomar exceed the B2 safety design standards. While the county cannot control what types of aircraft use Palomar, it can improve safety to accommodate them. This is an image of Palomar looking west toward the ocean. The master plan considered 3 main safety enhancements for the airport. The first is adding engineered materials arresting system known as EMAS to the end of the runway. EMAS is a system designed to assist with stopping aircraft in an emergency, similar to a runaway truck ramp. The second safety enhancement is extending the runway up to an additional 900 feet. Palomar's runway is short, and extending it provides more room for existing aircraft to safely take off and land and improves the potential for the return of regional passenger service using 30 to 70 seat aircraft. Lastly, adding more space between the runway and taxiway creates more room for different sizes of aircraft to move around at the same time and keep them safely separated. The master plan first evaluated the current B2 safety design standards with 3 options for added safety enhancements. Still looking west, this graphic depicts the airport property boundary in light blue, the runway in dark blue, the taxiways in yellow, and the north parking ramp in pink. Option A includes installing EMAS at the west end of the airfield as shown here in red. The estimated cost of this option is $26.8 million. Option B includes EMAS and a 200-foot runway extension as shown here in green and has an estimated cost of $41.7 million. Option C includes EMAS with up to a 900-foot runway extension shown here in purple in addition to the green. This option would require bridging over an inactive landfill depicted by a red dashed line and constructing a retaining wall along Palomar Airport Road. The estimated cost of this option is $96.1 million. Based on the FAA evaluation criteria, the master plan does not recommend staying a B2 airport. The D3 safety design standards require greater separation between the runway and taxiway than currently exists at Palomar. To meet the standard, the north taxiway and parking ramp shown in pink would be removed. The runway shown in blue would be shifted along with the taxiway shown in yellow, which creates more space between the runway, the taxiway, and the parking ramp. The master plan evaluated the D3 design standards with 2 options. Option A includes a 370-foot runway extension, as shown here in green, with an estimated cost of $91.3 million. Option B includes a runway extension of up to 800 feet, shown in purple, in addition to the green. This option also requires a retaining wall and has an estimated cost of $101 million. Both options include the installation of EMAS on both ends of the runway, as shown in red, as well as bridging over the inactive landfill. It is important to note all of these improvements are within the current airport property boundaries. Based on FAA evaluation criteria, the master plan recommends D3 as the preferred development option to safely accommodate the aircraft currently using the airport. The D3 options impact the runway protection zone, known as RPZ. The FAA restricts uses within the RPZ, which are safety areas located at each end of the runway. When the runway is relocated to the north, the RPZ will overlay a portion of an office building, shown here in orange. While existing uses in that portion of the building would be grandfathered in, other uses could be restricted. Staff has contacted the property owner and informed them of the master plan in this hearing. These potential impacts could be resolved through the negotiation and purchase of an navigation easement, which is an agreement to restrict future uses by the owner. This approach was used to mitigate an RPZ impact on a property currently within the RPZ, shown here in green. In 2018, after an extensive 3-year effort, the board adopted the master plan selecting the D3 safety design standards and an 800-foot runway extension and certified the program EIR. Following approval of the master plan, the court ruled the county would need to seek a conditional use permit amendment from the city of Carlsbad to implement the D3 safety design standards. In response to the court order, staff has revised the master plan to state that the county would, without waiving any legal rights, seek an amendment should the decision be made to pursue safety design standards greater than B2. No further edits are needed to comply with the court's order. Staff directed ICF to complete an economic analysis studying 2 growth scenarios for 2036, which is the end of the master planning's planning period. The 2 growth scenarios are no development and full development, which includes the D3 safety design standards with an 800-foot runway extension. The ICF analysis determined that the main economic driver of the airport is the potential return of regional passenger service if the airport moves to D3 standards and increases the runway length. Within the contiguous United States, there are no airports with passenger service that have runways that are less than 5,000 feet in length. Palomar's runway is just under 4,900 feet, and extending it improves the potential for future regional passenger service using small 30 to 70-seat aircraft. The return of regional passenger service would result in additional jobs and economic growth. In this development scenario, jobs, economic activity, and tax revenues could almost double.
The environmental review of the master plan began in 2016 when a notice of preparation for the environmental impact report was issued. Once drafted, the program EIR had 2 public review periods in 2018. To analyze the potential impacts, the program EIR looked at the master plan improvements, and 5 resource areas were found to have significant but mitigable impacts. First was traffic. Because the surrounding roads are maintained by the City of Carlsbad, county coordinated with the city during development of the traffic impact study and EIR. In addition, the EIR was prepared using the city's methodology and thresholds of significance. Ultimately, the EIR found a cumulative impact would occur over time at 2 intersections along Palomar Airport Road. Second was biological resources. Biological impacts would occur both on the airport and on a county-owned parcel east of El Camino Real. Next was aesthetics, or visual impacts from the proposed retaining walls associated with the potential runway extensions. Fourth was construction noise, which will vary depending on the construction project, location, and time of day. And lastly was hazardous materials, from construction over the inactive landfill, which will require measures to ensure safety of workers and the environment are followed. In each of these 5 resource areas, mitigation measures will be implemented to reduce impacts to below level of significance. Other environmental resource areas were studied in the program EIR and determined to have less than significant impacts. On the greenhouse gas analysis, the master plan coordinated with the county's climate action planning efforts, but the program EIR completed an independent analysis that did not rely on the county's cap. The independent analysis, which has been validated by the court, found that less than significant impacts to both energy use and greenhouse gases would occur for the master plan. Regarding land use, the program EIR acknowledges future projects in the master plan would be reviewed for consistency with the City of Carlsbad's general plan as the local land use authority, as applicable. However, as a county-owned facility and property, compliance with the county general plan goals and policies would also be analyzed. The program EIR concludes land use impacts would be less than significant. In 2010, a noise contour was developed, shown here in blue, that depicts the 65 decibel community noise equivalent level, or CNEL, which the FAA defines as the threshold for significant noise impacts. A noise contour was also developed for the 2018 master plan, shown here in yellow, with all the projects contemplated by the master plan. The north and south sides would largely stay the same, while the east and west ends show a smaller noise envelope than in the past. Due to forecasted activity, newer, quieter aircraft, and extending the runway. Regarding the recent court ruling, the court required additional noise analysis that was further away from the airport. Additional locations were analyzed to determine whether these new locations would result in significant noise impacts. They were analyzed for existing conditions, future conditions without the project in the master plan, and future conditions with full development. The orange dots on the slide show all the additional locations that were studied. All locations were well outside of the future noise contour surrounding Palomar Airport, which is the threshold for identifying impacts, shown outlined here in black. The locations were in the cities of San Marcos, Oceanside, Carlsbad, Encinitas, and Vista. These results are consistent with the program EIR that was upheld by the court and concluded that the project would result in less than significant impacts, which means that there may be incremental change, but it did not reach the level where any additional measures were needed. As such, the program EIR has been updated to reflect this additional analysis, and no further edits are needed to comply with the court order.
The Board of Supervisors originally directed staff to update the Palomar Master Plan in December of 2015. Since 2016, the county has been conducting public outreach with airport users, businesses, residents, and government entities, including the neighboring cities, as part of the master plan process. In the summer and fall of 2021, county staff held several public informational meetings on the master plan update, quarterly meetings with the staff from the cities of Carlsbad, Oceanside, San Marcos, and Vista, where staff offered individual briefings on the master plan for staff of each city, created and maintained a public website, conducted a public survey, sent emails at project milestones, and participated in a variety of stakeholder meetings in addition to the public Palomar Airport Advisory Committee meetings. The 4 cities have been participating and engaging with the county on the master plan update throughout the process. The options included in the master plan have not changed since the Board of Supervisors' approval in 2018. The county's Palomar Airport Advisory Committee, or PAC, meets every 2 months to provide an open public forum for communities to review and make recommendations regarding land use, development, operations, and other matters pertaining to Palomar Airport. The committee includes representatives from the cities of San Marcos, Oceanside, Vista, and Carlsbad. And on October 14th, the committee, including representatives of the 4 cities, voted unanimously to recommend approval of the master plan incorporating the D3 safety design standards with an 800-foot runway extension and associated program EIR, and to explore additional options with a keen focus on safety, sustainability, and noise. From the public outreach throughout the master planning process, there were several common themes. First, we heard there is a desire for the return of passenger service at Palomar. Despite service ending in 2015, there is still strong demand in North County, and the master plan contemplated future passenger service. However, the current runway length and the airport configuration limit regional carriers from returning. Extending the runway and moving to D3 design standards improves the potential for the return of regional passenger service using small 30 to 70 seat aircraft. Another item we heard from the community is a concern that if regional passenger service were to return, Palomar might become another John Wayne-sized airport, hosting millions of passengers each year and utilizing some of the largest commercial jet airliners. The next few slides addresses the differences in more detail and show how Palomar cannot become another John Wayne Airport. This graphic shows the 2 airports at the same scale. Palomar Airport is shown on the top and is approximately 250 acres. John Wayne Airport, shown on the bottom, is roughly twice that size at approximately 500 acres. Palomar Airport is constrained by its size and committed to staying within its existing footprint. There are several factors that limit the size, scale, and volume of aircraft operating at Palomar. Palomar can only accommodate 30 to 70 seat aircraft such as the CRJ 700 regional jet, while John Wayne is designed to support the large Boeing 767, a 245 seat aircraft. In addition, there are vast differences in the passenger terminals. Palomar Airport currently has an 1,800 square foot terminal with 1 gate as compared to John Wayne's 730,000 square feet, which has 3 terminals and 22 gates. Palomar's terminal could accommodate approximately 1,500 passengers per day at full development as compared to John Wayne, which is designed to accommodate over 23,000 passengers per day or 8.4 million per year. The areas in green also demonstrate the differences in the aircraft parking areas. Palomar Airport is much smaller and can only accommodate small 30 to 70 seat regional aircraft. The master plan and EIR does not include projects to accommodate the passengers and aircraft at the size, scale, or volume to become another John Wayne Airport. Airport noise is a concern for residents surrounding the airport. The county works to educate and reach out to flight schools and pilot groups through the voluntary noise abatement program on ways to minimize noise issues. Although aircraft in flight under the jurisdiction of the FAA, in addition, county airports continues to improve coordination between the FAA and surrounding communities to better understand and address noise concerns. In March of this year, the Palomar Airport Advisory Committee, or PAC, hosted the FAA where they explained how the public can submit inquiries using the FAA's latest noise website tool. County airports also installs and maintains noise monitors surrounding the airport. Regarding the EIR, existing noise conditions were taken into consideration and used as a baseline to predict how noise would change around the airport if the master plan was implemented. The EIR used the FAA's threshold to determine if a significant noise impact would occur with the projects contemplated in the master plan, and it found that no residences would be impacted under existing or future conditions of the project. We also heard feedback regarding the greenhouse gas analysis completed for the EIR. As mentioned before, the EIR did not rely on the county's climate action plan. Similar to vehicles on roadways, aviation emissions are not under the jurisdiction of the county, but we can certainly explore ways the county can promote and incentivize lowering emissions through a sustainability plan, which we will discuss in a moment. Lastly, we received feedback from the community regarding how the master plan is related to other regional plans. Staff believes there are opportunities for county airports to demonstrate sustainability leadership through continued coordination with the county efforts such as the Climate Action Plan update and the Regional Decarbonization Framework and the San Diego Association of Governments, or SANDAG, Regional Plan. As part of the CAP update, emission sources from county-owned facilities and operations will be included in the inventory and projections. Measures to reduce emissions from these sources will be integrated into airport sustainability plans, and the County of San Diego will continue to work with SANDAG and the City of Carlsbad as these plans develop to connect the airport and surrounding community through transportation opportunities. The master plan will not conflict with these regional plans, and through continued coordination, these efforts can effectively work together. The City of Carlsbad sent letters with feedback primarily related to the environmental impact report and its compliance with CEQA. Response to the letters have been shared with the clerk of the board. Staff has reviewed all of the comments received, including the letters from Carlsbad, and believe all pertinent issues have been addressed, and the master plan and environmental impact report have addressed the court's direction.
Staff has identified ways for airports to demonstrate sustainability leadership. First, airports will integrate with the county's CAP and the regional decarbonization efforts. As part of the CAP update, emission sources from airports, excluding aviation fuel, will be included in the county operations greenhouse gas, or GHG, inventory and projections. The CAP update will include measures to reduce GHG emissions from these sources and explore measures to meet targets. The sustainability goals for airports will also align with the regional decarbonization framework in terms of emissions from aviation fuels, ground operations, and buildings. As specialized facilities, county airports could become a sustainability leader in addition to coordinating with these regional efforts. The sustainability plans could look at green infrastructure and projects to help achieve zero net energy by 2035 or sooner for airport-owned facilities and operations. Although the county does not own the tenant facilities, county airports could explore sustainability practices, including green leasing strategies. Airports could also facilitate and promote the use of alternative fueled aircraft, including electric. Using these leadership areas as a guide, staff has developed options for the board's consideration that we will outline in a moment. The Trade Organization for the World's Airlines have committed to transitioning to net zero carbon emissions by 2050, which will require transformational change. The industry is turning to electric and alternative aircraft as a path for achieving that ambitious goal. United Airlines recently ordered a fleet of 19-seat electric aircraft expected to enter service as soon as 2026. And Airbus plans to have 100-seat electric aircraft ready to fly by 2030. Not only would electric aircraft eliminate direct carbon emissions, but they would also reduce noise by nearly 70%. Electric and alternatively fueled aircraft will require specialized support equipment and handling procedures, and airports will be pivotal to their successful operation. It is important that all our county airports meet the needs of its users, and although this technology is still being developed, the county can become an industry leader in this space, starting with Palomar. The FAA has provided grant funding in the past for pilot projects to demonstrate new technologies and identify efficient methods, best practices, and regulatory changes. Staff has contacted the FAA, and they are interested in working collaboratively on a pilot project at Palomar. As an early adopter of the technology, the county will be well positioned to be a leader in sustainability.
Ultimately, today's decision will determine how the airport will continue to serve the community in the future. The first policy decision is to select one of the following 3 airport design standard options and its runway length. This decision involves determining what level of safety enhancements should be provided to protect aircraft passengers and those on the ground. Option A is to direct staff to pursue the B2 safety design standards enhanced with EMAS and an option of either no runway extension, a 200-foot runway extension, or a 900-foot extension. The airport is currently designed for B2 aircraft, yet over 40% of the business jets based at Palomar exceed those standards. Runway length also plays a crucial role in safety by providing additional room for takeoffs and landings in normal and emergency situations. A longer runway allows aircraft to take off sooner and climb higher, potentially reducing noise to the communities west of the airport. In addition to safety, a longer runway increases the potential for passenger service using small 30 to 70-seat aircraft by accommodating more passengers, baggage, and fuel, making operations more efficient and extending the distance aircraft can fly. These benefits increase with the length of the runway, so a 900-foot runway extension would be more beneficial than a 200-foot runway extension. Option B is to direct staff to pursue the B2 safety design standards now enhanced with EMAS along with the runway extension option. In the meantime, staff will work to resolve the RPZ impacts, seek a conditional use permit amendment, and after resolution, staff will return to the board for future consideration of the D3 safety design standards. This option provides flexibility to develop some of the B2 enhancements now while preserving the option of pursuing D3 safety enhancements in the future. Option C is to direct staff to pursue the D3 safety design standards now with EMAS and a runway extension of a runway extension option of 370 or 800 feet. Although this option requires the staff to resolve the RPZ impacts and seek a conditional use permit amendment, the board directs staff to pursue the D3 safety design standards once the RPZ impacts and the conditional use permit amendment have been resolved. The D3 design standards enhance safety for aircraft currently using the airport, includes EMAS, and makes more room between the taxiway, runway, and parking ramp to keep aircraft safely separated. The D3 design standards with an 800-foot runway extension provides the best opportunity for future commercial passenger service using 30 to 70-seat aircraft. The board needs to provide direction on the master plan prior to staff working on individual projects. Each of the projects identified within each option, such as EMAS or runway extension, would require its own environmental review. Regardless of the chosen option for airport design, the safety enhancements would be built in phases and are anticipated to be completed within 13 to 20 years, depending on funding. The second policy decision is determining the Palomar Airport Master Plan status. Option A is to adopt the Mcclellan Palomar Airport Master Plan update based on the selected design standards. Option B is to not adopt the master plan and direct staff to evaluate other airport safety design standards. The master plan evaluated the B2 and the D3 design standards in consideration of the airport's current status, FAA guidance, and board direction. However, there are other design standards not considered by the master plan that could be evaluated. However, it's unclear how these safety design standards might be carried out on the airport, their impact on current and future users, and whether the FAA would even approve them. Additionally, any design standards other than the B2 and D3 would require additional evaluation under CEQA. The evaluation of other safety design standards is estimated to cost $1.1 million or more and take up to 2 or more years. Under this option, there will be no safety standard improvements until a master plan and EIR are completed and approved by the board. Grant funding, commercial service, and growth in jobs and the economy will also be limited. If the board chooses to adopt the master plan, staff recommends the board first certify that the final program environmental impact report has been completed in compliance with CEQA and adopt the necessary findings and associated documents. The fourth policy decision is directing staff on airport sustainability measures. Option A would direct staff to prepare a sustainability plan specifically for Palomar. If this option is selected, the sustainability plan would supplement the master plan by identifying potential capital improvements and initiatives at Palomar to facilitate and promote sustainability. Any new sustainability projects would be analyzed for potential environmental impacts. A Palomar-specific sustainability plan is estimated to take 12 to 18 months at an estimated cost of $500,000. Option B would direct staff to prepare a sustainability plan that addresses all 8 county airports, starting with implementing sustainability measures for Palomar. If this option is selected, the sustainability plan would identify potential capital improvements and initiatives at all county-owned airports, including Palomar, to facilitate and promote sustainability. Any new sustainability projects would be analyzed for their potential economic impacts as well. A system-wide sustainability plan is estimated to take 18 to 24 months at a cost of approximately $1 million. This is staff's recommendation. However, both options can work in concert with the county regional decarbonization framework and the climate action plan. The goals in those plans can be integrated into these plans. If the board does not adopt the master plan, then option 5 would direct staff to begin preparation of a new master plan for Palomar that integrates sustainability into its recommended improvements. This would require an entirely new master planning process with a new environmental analysis pursuant to CEQA. A sustainability master plan is estimated to take 4 years at a cost of $4.5 million or more. Under this option, there will be no safety standard improvements until a new master plan and EIR are completed and approved by the board. Again, grant funding, commercial service, and growth in jobs in the economy will be limited. This concludes staff's presentation, and we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the very thorough presentation. I know there will be some questions, but why don't we hear from our public speakers on this item first, and then we'll come back to the board for comments or questions.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 56 total requests to speak, 18 individuals in person, 38 requesting to speak by phone, and 1 group presentation. So we will begin with the group presentation. You will have 10 minutes to address the board. All 3 members of the group must speak during that 10 minutes. Please self-regulate your time with the timer on the podium. And as a reminder, each person in the group may speak for no more than 4 minutes. As you come forward, please state your name at the podium before you begin your presentation. I would like to invite forward the first group presentation, which includes the following individuals: Victor Avina, Joshua Hochberg, and Clayton Lackey. And you'll have 10 minutes, and if you could start by stating your name for the record.
Sure. Good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. My name is Clayton Lackey. I'm the Director of FBOs at the Carlsbad Jet Center. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. With me today are Joshua Hochberg, Chief Executive, Carlsbad Jet Center, and Victor Vina, Senior Associate at Falcon Strategies. He's our consultant on this issue. You'll hear from both of them shortly. As the second largest fixed-base operator at Mcclellan Palomar Airport, we're here this morning to respectfully request the board adopt the master plan with a D3 designation.
Could we take just a brief pause and request that the presentation put up on the screen, please?
Sure, next slide, please. And next slide, please. Thank you. First, some quick background on Carlsbad Jet Center. We have office, hangar, and terminal space at the airport. We've invested heavily in our infrastructure, and as of February 2020, we now operate out of our beautiful brand new 12,000 square foot terminal and office space, which is in addition to our 155,000 square feet of hangar space. We completely renovated our facility and are very proud of the space. But more importantly, we're proud of our people. Carlsbad Jet Center directly employs 34 residents of San Diego County, and more than 160 people are employed on our property. This is just a fraction of the total number of people employed at the airport. Next slide, please. We house all types of general aviation aircraft, from the smallest single-engine Cessna all the way to the largest corporate jets, such as the Gulfstream 650. Our users range from local people learning to fly for their careers, to recreational pilots, to people who use aircraft for important business transportation. Users of the facility also include emergency uses like fire, medical airlift, and organ donation. In fact, a significant percentage of our late-night flights at the facility are for life-saving medical missions.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher, members of the board. My name is Victor Vina with Falcon Strategies. Carlsbad Jet Center has the very unique position of being a part of the Southern California Laborers Pension Trust. Simply put, the Carlsbad Jet Center contributes to the pensions of folks in this system, folks with tough jobs like digging ditches, pouring concrete, and excavating buildings. Next slide, please. But now for the meat of why we're here today. We'd first like to touch on sustainability. Carlsbad Jet Center is committed to sustainability and innovation as two core values of the company. Regardless of which option your board chooses today in terms of developing a sustainability plan, the Carlsbad Jet Center stands ready and eager to engage with county staff in its development. The Carlsbad Jet Center has already taken steps toward making their operations more sustainable. We've installed 10 electric car charging stations on property for customer use. We've converted all of our equipment for towing aircraft to be electric. We employ an electric car as a courtesy vehicle for visiting pilots. We're interested in working with the county to make it possible to install solar arrays on the aircraft hangar roofs. And perhaps most importantly, Carlsbad Jet Center is committed to offering sustainable aviation fuel as soon as it becomes commercially viable. According to the U.S. Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, sustainable aviation fuel made from renewable biomass and waste resources have the potential to deliver the performance of petroleum-based jet fuel, but with a fraction of its carbon footprint, giving aircraft solid footing for decoupling greenhouse gas emissions from flight. Next slide, please.
Hello, Chair Fletcher, members of the board. My name is Josh Hochberg. I'm Chief Executive of Carlsbad Jet Center. For us, the conversation here, it's not about increasing capacity at the airport. It's about safety. The runway extension or any improvements or modifications to the airport would not increase safety, it would increase capacity, because capacity is limited by parking. There just isn't enough room on the airport for additional aircraft to park. Also, it's important to note that this improvement is necessary for current users of the airport. As staff pointed out, over 40% of the jet aircraft based at the airport fall into the D3 category. Finally, as a pilot of a small jet myself and a regular operator at Palomar Airport, I can share with you my perspective on why the safety improvements are actually quite real. The runway at Palomar is shorter than most airports that I operate from. The runway also has a variable slope, and it has steep drop-offs on either end. Operators at our airport are very good at taking these factors into account when they operate at the airport and mitigating the risk. However, the best risk mitigation strategy is to increase the runway length and add EMS at the airport. There's an old saying in aviation that there's nothing less useful than the runway behind you or the altitude above you. By increasing the runway length at the airport, we will make it so that folks are able to take off quicker, get into altitude faster, and reduce risk going forward. Next slide, please. So we look forward to working with the county to make Palomar Airport safer and more sustainable, and we encourage you to adopt the master plan with a runway length extension and a D3 designation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to note for the record that we did receive 117 e-comments on this item, 2 in favor and 106 in opposition. Any members of the public that have requested to speak on phone to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that have been provided to you. We will now go to the in-person speakers. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. And I will be calling individuals in groups of 5. I would like to invite forward the following individuals: Frank Soon, Rich Breyer, Jan Neff Sinclair, Christine Wright, and Linda Slater. You will have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could please begin by stating your name for the record.
Good morning, it's Frank Sung, 20-year resident of Carlsbad. Please retain Palomar Airport as a B2 airport with the EMAS and no runway expansion. You know, the various plans in terms of what's being put in front of you are full of the term mitigation in simple English that says to make less bad and less offensive. The expansion options that the staff has prepared and which was approved by the previous Board of Supervisors, which would extend the runway to be equivalent to John Wayne in length, at an airport that does not have quiet hours, does not have restricted flight paths. It's like the Wild West up there, right? In the middle of residential homes is totally irresponsible. That's my message today, environmentally, economically, or socially. You cannot mitigate away airplane greenhouse gas emissions, air pollutants and soot, methane gas that comes from the garbage dump under a potentially extended runway, and putting more traffic on failing roads that cannot be expanded. It's also extremely unpopular, by the way. In the last 2-3 months, over 2,200 citizens have signed a petition to stop the expansion. Let's have some straight talk here. This expansion is not about safety. This is not about bringing commercial passenger service to North County. This is all about offloading corporate and private jets from San Diego International and potentially bringing freight operations to Palomar. That's what's happening here. So over $6 billion, you know it better than I, are being spent to improve commercial passenger services at San Diego International. It is not economically viable for an airline to put commercial passenger service in Palomar. There's no quiet hours, no restricted flight paths. Think about that. And we have dense residential neighborhoods. So it's not the right place to extend and expand. So the net is I'm asking you to move forward with a new vision. Let Sandag's implementation work out, sir. And please stop the expansion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rich Breyer. I'm City Carlsbad resident for over 40 years. I also have 34 years of experience as a civil engineer. I work for Caltrans, and I'm retiring actually in a few days. As a licensed engineer, I look at freeways all day long. I've been working on them for a long time, and I-5, as you know, is reaching its end of its expansion. You know, they're going to be at one HOV lane in each direction all the way up through the North County. There's no room to expand, plus the Coastal Commission is not going to let you expand that road anymore. The Palomar Airport Road and El Camino Real, both are at capacity. There's no room to expand those either. The PEIR relied on city traffic studies, which in 2019 were proven to be incorrect. The county staff, I don't think, has done any attempts to update that traffic studies. So I feel that that's another thing you guys got to look at on that EIR. The county staff, let's see, the PIR doesn't include any mass transit options, whatever that is. And it also has ignored Sandag's 5 big move with no mention of that in the PEIR. I live fairly close to the airport. I watch. I mean, this morning a jet took off at 6:15 this morning. The other day we were out in the backyard having a little get together with some friends, and a 650 GS took off and made a hard right turn. It came up probably at 40 degree, made a hard right turn right over my house. I mean, didn't go out to the ocean, turn around, didn't follow any of the rules. I mean, do the right thing, guys. I would like to go for the option A, B2, no expansion with EMAS. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Jan Neff Sinclair, and I'm a 32-year resident of Carlsbad. I'm in favor of retaining Mcclellan Palomar Airport as a B2 airport, adding only EMAS and no runway extension. I'm extremely concerned about the impact any changes may make on the community, both environmentally and as an avoidable public nuisance. After reviewing this plan, there are some major flaws with it that make implementation in an environmentally sound and socially just way impossible. Air and noise pollution impacts are completely ignored. So is the impact on the surrounding traffic and roadways, most of which are beyond maximum capacity already. There is no room for road expansion, while dense low-income housing has been approved or is being built along the flight paths. The negative impacts will hit low-income residents the hardest. Meanwhile, who will be using the airport and who are the biggest proponents? Wealthy individuals and businesses who want their very own airport, corporate jets who would rather refuel in Carlsbad than sit in line at John Wayne or San Diego, or who would rather refuel at O'Dark 100 because they can't go to the other airports. Package delivery companies whose profits will just increase at our expense. What about the residents who are already being impacted by the sloppy way the airport is managed and regulated? Do you, as representatives of the citizens in this region, care more about us or about corporate interests and those of the 1%? This is not a people's airport, and the proposed changes will not benefit the majority of the residents who will live with the negative impacts. Please just say no to airport expansion. Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. Chris Wright, 42-year resident of Carlsbad and native San Diegan. I'm also one of the over 2,200 voters to have signed Citizens for a Friendly Airports petition asking you, the Board of Supervisors, to vote to keep Palomar Airport as a B2 airport. Add the EMAS requested at the end of the runway with no runway extension. Expert attorneys hired by the city of Carlsbad, which are KK&R, say the airport is safe now. In this plan, the county dangles potential commercial airline service as a carrot for the expansion of the airport. Commercial service, as the public defines it, won't be coming to Palomar Airport anytime soon. Over $6 billion have been slated to improve San Diego International Airport in the past 2 years. As a matter of fact, over $3 billion was voted on by this very board in May 2021. Most of those funds will be paid for by the airlines, both directly and indirectly. Clearly, those large bond payments will require the commercial airlines to operate out of San Diego for the foreseeable future. And although the county may define charter operations sports teams as commercial air service, the voters think of commercial airlines such as United, American, Delta, Southwest, et cetera. As a Carlsbad resident, I can tell you exactly why this airport expansion is being sought. It is so that the wealthy jet owners can fly their private jets in and out of Palomar at all hours of the day and night. Palomar Airport is viewed as their own private airport where they can come and go as they please. A longer runway means more and larger planes 24/7. Please don't substitute the whims of the private jet owners with our tax dollars. Thank you very much.
As the next speaker is coming up, I will call the next 5 speakers. Robert German, Dawn Christensen, Barbara Campbell, Pia Romano, Vicki Sage. Thank you.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Linda Slater. I'm a 16-year resident of Oceanside, and we are impacted in Oceanside from Palomar Airport, by the way. But I'm here to call your attention to the fact that on April 20th of this year, the San Diego County Democratic Party's Central Committee approved a resolution opposing the expansion and the increase in size of Palomar Airport. The basis for this request was increasing greenhouse gas emissions that would result from a larger airport, larger planes, is not wise at this time. Your said policy is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 0 by 2035. I don't see how you could do both. Secondly, the communities surrounding the airport are experiencing a lot of adverse effects. Traffic is one, noise. It doesn't matter how small the noise level is on this new plane, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there are, by the way, a lot of homes that are placed around Palomar Airport. Also particulates. You know, when planes take off, it's not just gas, they're particulates that fall. And thirdly, the Palomar Airport Advisory Committee is comprised primarily of industry individuals. And they tend not to listen to and take advice from the community. And we think it's time that the community have a voice and that you listen to our voice. And we have consistently said, those of us in Oceanside, Vista, Carlsbad, and San Marcos, that expanding Palomar Airport is a bad idea. So I'm asking you again, on behalf of people, thank you.
My name is Robert Gurman. I live in Lakeside. I was born and raised in San Diego. We are requesting all 8 master airport plans, such as the board ordered for Palomar, to be redone. The same MO has been used on all county airports for 30 years. That is, half-truths, broken promises, and misrepresentations. The pie in the eye claims by airport people. Aviation is changing, and not just because of COVID. This agenda item is not the way to address this change. We ask for a no vote on item 6 and all options. As Senator Feinstein's office recommended, elected officials need to just say no to FAA grant money, which is the real motivating factor in this Palomar expansion. Just say no to San Diego's double-breasting, trickle-down economic airport system that has existed for 30 years in San Diego County. If you're serious about safety, the environment, and San Diego's aviation complex, join with the City of San Diego and instruct county staff to do a feasibility study for a building of the state-of-the-art world airport for a world city, San Diego. Build this airport with union workers and maintained by union workers. Don't keep pouring money into a bunch of small, podunk, outdated, toxic, noisy, expensive, short runway airports, which includes Palomar. Move Palomar Airport. That is the future. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Garman, real quick. Mr. Garman, do you have a location for this mega airport?
Yes, MCAS. It was proposed in 2005 and voted on, and like the Coronado Bridge, it takes 3 or 4 times for the people to realize, and now is the time. We got COVID money, we got Build Back Better money, and we have the demand for a world airport with multiple runways.
Fair enough. Your hope springs eternal. You're an optimist.
Well, the Chargers...
I will point out that ballot measure... Fair enough. It's my turn to talk now.
The Chargers are coming back.
Fair enough. I will point out, Mr. Gurman, hope springs eternal. I'll share with you that ballot measure lost in San Diego County in every single jurisdiction. It lost in every city council seat. It lost in every supervisorial seat. It lost in every congressional seat. It lost in every school board. There also was not a single elected official at any level of government who supported it, which those are things in government we tend to call an indicator. But I take to heart your optimism. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, board members, staff, and proactive fellow citizens. My name is Don Christensen. I live in Northeast Carlsbad. We already have issues with planes coming in loud and low over our home. I appreciate the staff presentation, especially the John Wayne and Palomar Airport comparison. However, I don't recall anything about freight planes, and that is one of my concerns now and in the future. Who profits and who pays if our local airport is expanded? Privatizing the profit and socializing cost through taxes and increased noise and air pollution is only a good business model if you are on the right side of it. The camel's nose is a metaphor for a situation where the permitting of a small, seemingly innocuous act will open the door for larger, clearly undesirable actions. From a taxpayer's perspective, does the proposed airport expansion really make sense to you, our elected decision makers? I request that you decide to keep Palomar Airport a B2 airport with no runway extension. Thank you.
Excuse me, good morning. I have a Christmas gift for you all. My name is Barbara Campbell. I'm a 12-year Carlsbad resident. My 2 requests are to please keep Palomar Airport as is, a B2 general aviation airport with no runway expansion, and do not, please, recertify an out-of-date PEIR. I'm presenting this petition sponsored by the Citizens for a Friendly Airport, a grassroots, nonpartisan, all-volunteer organization. C4FA's mission is to educate and to advocate for the residents that are impacted by Palomar Airport operations. 100% of the signatures on this document have been collected from our neighbors in San Marcos, Vista, and Escondido, all of your constituents. No money was spent collecting these names, and this petition has been signed by over 2,200 residents of North County. The petition is asking you, please, our elected officials, to stop any expansion of Palomar Airport so that there's no additional noise, health, safety, and traffic issues. The petition is also asking our elected officials to petition the FAA to establish mandatory quiet hours. Please, I'm tired of being woken up. And restrict paths over homes and schools. The residents of North County have not had a voice to speak in the future of Palomar Airport, and this petition is in a small way reflecting the overwhelming sentiment of people who live there. The Palomar Airport Business Association, also known as Palomar Airport Advisory Committee, has constantly ignored protecting the residents who live near the airport from air and noise. The voluntary noise abatement program is a joke. Posting a few flyers in the pilot's lounge does not encourage anyone to be a good citizen and to keep the airport friendly. Any plans to expand, extend, and enlarge the runway operations of this airport, which sits in the midst of dense residential population, is irresponsible. I want to submit this petition to you and have it included in the public record. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Pia Romano, and I'm a resident of Vista. I'm also one of the over 2,200 voters that signed the Citizens for a Friendly Airport petition asking you, the Board of Supervisors, to please vote to keep Palomar Airport as a B2 airport, add the EMAS requested at the end of the runway, and please no runway extension. There's no business case for this expansion. The economic study used is dated back to September 2019, before the pandemic that caused the airline industry to lose 90% of its revenues. The report ignores the impact of the pandemic. The business case starting point is 9 times higher than actual numbers from 2020. No one expects the industry to recover anytime soon, and certainly not to pre-pandemic levels. The CEOs of the 4 major airlines, American, Delta, United, and Southwest, have said so. Those CEOs don't expect air travel to get anywhere near their new normal until at least 2025. The new normal is because business travel, their bread and butter, is never expected to return to pre-pandemic levels. Zoom and remote meetings are here to stay. In May 2021, county staff reported that airline traffic at San Diego would still be below 2014 levels in 2023. We've lost a decade of air traffic here in San Diego. There's no business case to justify expanding Palomar Airport. As a Vista resident, I can tell you why this runway extension is being sought. It's so the wealthy jet owners can fly their big private jets to and from China and Europe without having to make a pit stop for gas. I hear them all the time. You're being asked to lengthen the runway at Palomar so private jet owners don't have to stop for gas. Please vote to keep Palomar a B2 airport, add the EMAS, and do not extend the runway. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker comes up, I will call the next 5 speakers: Shirley Anderson, Gary Greening, Hope Norson, Stephanie Jekyll, and Cliff Kaiser.
Ready? Okay. Good morning. My name is Vicki Sayage, and I'm a resident of Carlsbad, and I'm here to ask you to vote to keep Palomar as a B2 airport, add the EMAS requested, and no runway extension. Believe it or not, I've read this master plan update. What an ever-changing fairy tale. The purpose and need have not, pardon? Pardon? What an ever-changing fairy tale. The purpose and need have not been adequately proven. The latest twists are, quote, the FAA requires it, or now the FAA recommends it, and safety issues. Let's start with the FAA requires it. No, it doesn't. A public records request for the FAA regulations yielded a link to the design site. That's because FAA regulations don't exist. Every government regulation has an identifying number. The county couldn't name a single one. FAA recommendations are based on flights flying in and out of an airport by airplane type. The county doesn't have those numbers either. A public records request came up blank, supported by Director Brackett's public comments on September 29th. Quote, how many aircraft are flying in and out every day? We don't track that. We don't get it by type of aircraft, end quote. Vaughn's can identify what brand and type of tuna that's sold on every aisle in every grocery store in the county, but the county can't tell us what type and how many aircraft fly in and out of Palomar. Parked airplanes don't count. The only document this plan shows showing types of aircraft flying in and out of Palomar is a single chart from 2011, more than a decade ago, and there were 0 D3 airplanes in that chart. Moving on to safety, Palomar Airport is safe. You, Director Humphrey, said so yourself on September 29, and I quote, believe it or not, airports do not regulate or restrict aircraft that fly in and out of the airport. The airfield is safe. If you choose to permit a runway extension, we're in a catch-22. Larger aircraft will start using the airport. The airport won't be long enough. Safety issues will be declared. And here we go again, circular reasoning. This is a build it and they'll come plan. Facts matter. Vote to keep Palomar Airport at B2, add the EMAS, but do not extend the runway. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Shirley Anderson. I live in Carlsbad. I am a former private pilot. The county should not be approving a PEIR using critical noise information as old as 2006. Palomar Airport's Part 150 noise compatibility study is now 15 years old and has never been updated. The program created by the FAA in 1981 advises in the study to look at reducing the number of people who live in an airport noise-impacted area. One component of the Part 150 study is to determine best land use practices for building around an airport. What has been built around Palomar Airport since 2006? Homes, homes, more homes. How can cities meet the mandatory RENA residential development within a 10-mile radius of Palomar Airport, exposing more families to noise and emission particulate pollution? A typical jet approach to Palomar starts in Escondido over new residential development, heads over Cal State San Marcos, over all that new housing along San Marcos Boulevard, over a large senior mobile home park, proceeding past the Target with wheels down, entering Carlsbad, past more new residential development to touchdown. This path crosses over countless schools where teachers must stop teaching to allow for noise interruption. The Part 150 study suggests airports purchase property in noise-impacted areas. Since 2006, the surrounding cities have not missed an opportunity to change their zoning from industrial to residential. Keep Palomar a B2 with EMAS, no expansion. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, Supervisors. My name is Gary Greening, and I am on the Board of Directors at the Huron Bay Spyglass Hill Homeowner Association. I'm also a member of the Citizens for a Friendly Airport and a small business owner in Carlsbad. I'm here to talk about the noise pollution and abatement of it for our local airport. Our residential development and the jurisdiction of our HOA board represents about 150 single-family homes. And in my capacity as a representative of the homeowners and in response to their constant complaints, I have been researching the noise abatement issues as regard to the airport master plan and its adverse effects on the quality of life on the homeowners. Many of our local residents, neighborhoods, and regional HOAs are all experiencing increasing noise pollution from the nearby airport, especially the propeller-driven aircraft and the flight schools. The airport only has its voluntary program now, which has no citations, no penalties, or enforcement. And there are no pilot or aircraft owner penalties for violation of the plane heights, the noise levels, or flying hours. Our HOA took it upon themselves to take local from 4 or 5 different locations sound level measurements over a 30-day period in October just to see what we would come up with on the basis of the 65 dB level that's supposed to be maintained. And we utilized the airport web track to identify the flight number, the plane number, the time of day, and our violations range from 68 to 74, and there were 75 violations in just a 30-day period. And I have a chart to give to them showing the exact measurements we took. Judge Pollack's recent order directed using specific noise incidences as opposed to smoothing or averaging the data over months or years as the county has done. So I propose that we don't expand the airport.
Hi, my name is Hope Nelson, President of Citizens for a Friendly Airport. I, too, signed the petition, big surprise, and I support the B2 airport with EMAS to enhance safety and no runway expansion consistent with City of Carlsbad Resolution 2019-179. The residential communities of Carlsbad, Oceanside Vista, San Marcos, and Escondido have had very little say in what happens. We get no help or results from county staff or the Palomar Airport Advisory Committee, and conflicts of interest run rampant with the PAC. 9 members, 7 with financial interest or history in the aviation business. I want to speak a little bit to the presentations today. The first thing I want to talk about is sustainability. Well, what is sustainability excluding fuel emissions? What kind of sustainability is that? That's a real question. And electric planes, sounds great, but we really aren't there yet, are we? Commitment to not expand the footprint of Palomar Airport, is that binding? No. You own all the property bordering the south side of Palomar Airport adjacent to the current airport, which is currently a retail center. So let's not put the horse before the cart before the horse here. And noise, that's the purview of the PAC. Cliff Kaiser, the vice chair of the PAC, is here. Ask him about the PAC's achievements in reducing noise. This is a boondoggle. We don't want this airport. It's not good for North County. We need to wait. This isn't a good time to do this. Keep the airport the B2, please. Thank you very much.
As the speaker is getting ready, I will call the final 3 in-person speakers, Jim Wickstrom, Roxanne Fleming, and Isaiah Gonzalez.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Jackal, and I live in Vista. I am speaking on behalf of my own household and of many neighbors in Vista. We urge you to retain Mcclellan Palomar Airport as a B2 airport, to add EMAS at the end of the current runway, not to extend the runway in any manner. I am speaking against not only airplane overflight noise, which we certainly experience, but overflight pollution. The airplane fuel particulates rain down on us daily, on the tiles of my roof, on our patio cover, on the blossoms in my garden. Here is a bit of show and tell. This tchotchke was given to us after we moved to Vista in 2004. It hangs from our patio cover, and the propeller whirls when the ocean wind blows up our street each afternoon. At first, this was bright white and bright clear yellow. Then in 2014 or 2015, the next-gen navigation system came into use, and rather than going out to Escondido and approaching the airport along Palomar Airport Road, airplanes began to turn west over San Marcos and Vista, right over our house and our neighbors' houses. There are no rules about hours of flight or permitted flight paths. Planes can go where and when they want. My little airplane became covered with black particulates, sooty, discolored. If this is happening to my airplane, my roof tiles, my garden, what is happening to our lungs as we breathe this air? Please do not extend the runway. Do not make our environment even worse.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Cliff Kaiser. I am the Vice Chair of the Palomar Airport Advisory Committee, but I'm here speaking on behalf of myself. I mention that just so that you have some full disclosure. I have a lot of knowledge of the airport and airport operations, and I go to these PAC meetings 6 or 7 times a year, and they are quite filled with analysis of noise, overflights, and data like that. But I'm here to say that you're way behind schedule. I mean, the 20-year master plan was due in 2017. It's not even updated now. So if it takes that long to get going, you better start working on the next 20-year update as well. Right now, by not taking action, the airport is less safe than it can be. The airport noise environment is higher than it should be, based on what we see what the improvements can happen. And if there were commercial traffic out of Palomar, you'd see less traffic and less greenhouse gas stuff going up and down the freeway headed down to San Diego International or up to John Wayne or LAX. I just had to drive last week to pick up my sister and brother-in-law at the airport. If they could have flown out of Palomar, a 15-minute drive instead of an hour. So one member mentioned that the VNAP is only, information is only put out at a couple of fly-in schools and stuff like that, the VNAP being the Voluntary Noise Abatement Program. And I'm pretty certain that every pilot that lands at any airport knows that there's a noise abatement program in place. I'm a pilot. I just flew to San Francisco or San Jose 2 weeks ago. I know the airports that I'm going into, and I know their restrictions. I support the D3 extension. Thank you.
My name is Jim Wickstrom. I'm a 43-year resident of Carlsbad. I don't know if you know how hard it is to follow this process, but I live in North County where there are hundreds of thousands of people in North County that have no clue about this meeting. They have no clue about the changes. I know the system you have to try to integrate people is your system, but it may not work. So finally, I called Jim Desmond's office, and Ben Mills responded to me, and I read the report. It's a load. I read the whole thing. And one thing that was fascinating today was that some of the people here, like Cam was mentioning, in his team was mentioning components of it that weren't in the report. There were new details to me, because I did read the report. And then I also read the Carlsbad, City of Carlsbad's concerns with this whole process. And it was an 8-page document. I'm sure you've all seen it. But there's some people over there who are not happy. I don't live in the flight path, but I can share with you that 11 times before 5:30 a.m., Gulfstream 5 type planes have taken off. There's no oversight when planes take off. There's it's voluntary compliance, as you guys know. And my brother-in-law flies the Gulfstream 5. I know how loud they are. So that's one of the issues residents have here. There's more questions as I read the documents than there are answers so far. And when I hear comments by Ms. Carmichael about electric planes in 2050, it seemed gratuitous to me, because we're talking about the now. I do understand the concern of getting things done now to get a process going, but there's gaps. If you've read the report, there's gaps in it. If you want to know about noise, go play hole 4 at the crossings. I was there Monday. You're going to get your full dose of how loud planes can be when they're coming over you. I would hope that I would hope you would call Union Tribune's Jeff Light. I would say vote no on the issue and call Jeff Light and share your opinions.
Good morning. My name is Roxanne Fleming. I'm a resident of Carlsbad for 25 years. I live in Kelly Ranch. And the noise has lately been unbelievable, particularly early in the morning, so much so that I've sometimes had to go to sleep with earplugs in my ears. When we bought our house from Shea Homes, our sales rep, Yumi, told us that there would never be any expansion of the airport because it was landlocked. And one more thing I have is Supervisor Desmond. I have a recording of you.
San Diego County Supervisors have accepted a study that concludes it would be feasible to extend the runway at Mcclellan Palomar Airport in Carlsbad. The expansion would extend the runway by 900 feet over an old landfill, allowing corporate jets to fly nonstop to the East Coast and China. The mayors of several North County cities endorsed the idea, but San Marcos Mayor Jim Desmond warned that this is not a situation where the complaints of neighboring residents can be ignored.
However, in this case, the people are already there first. And now the airport's extending its footprint. The effect that if you're going to extend the airport, you've got to think about the surrounding community.
I say no expansion.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning to the board. Good morning to everyone here. Thank you for coming out and to show your support or negation to this plan. Kind of nervous. It's the first time, but I'll try and get into it. So, to the board, I want you to think about student pilots like myself. I want you to think about young aviators, people who are pursuing a future in aviation, right? There's always things we're thinking about in our head. We're thinking about the song Danger Zone.
Sir, could you please state your name for the record?
Oh, Isaiah Gonzalez.
Thank you.
My apologies. It's Isaiah Gonzalez. But we're always thinking, like Top Gun, love that song. Our sunglasses, make sure they're not scratched. But most importantly, safety and efficiency. This proposed plan will help us in a safety and effective manner. And that's why myself and a bunch of young aviators at Palomar Airport fully support it. Palomar Airport is a hub for student pilots and young aviators. There's plenty of flight schools such as ATP, different clubs that help us fly, and I asked the board to consider how this would affect us young aviators in a safety and an efficient way. We know that the study found that a longer runway would correct this, result in a greater safety for the aircraft currently using the airport. With safety aircraft movements, the safer we are as students, aviators, and passengers. By voting on the affirmation of this master plan will help students at Palomar. I urge that as leaders, please think about us. Please think about the future of us young aviators. Think about our potential and how we pursue to be servant leaders in the air. I ask that you support people like myself, Annika, Sora, Manu, Fernando, as student pilots. Help us become servant leaders in the sky. At the end of the day, we're going to look at everyone, to the negation, and to you gentlemen and ladies, come fly with us. Come fly with me, said the great singer, Frank Sinatra. This bill, this will help us in a safe and effective manner. Please think about young aviators. Thank you.
We will now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I would remind callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We will begin with our first caller. Again, please state your name before beginning your comments.
Robert Nazar. Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead. Thank you.
I'm a 40-year-old resident of Carlsbad, and I would never bought my home 40-plus years ago if I knew that there was going to be a major airport nearby. I'm not a pilot, although I have flown into and out of Palomar on small small prop airplanes. This new thing, I think, is not at all about safety, and we citizens are going to have more noise. We're going to have more pollution. I remember when we had some of the big airlines flying, connecting flights out of Carlsbad. They stopped it because there wasn't, any real interest. They weren't competitive on a price standpoint. There's no public transportation to Palomar, really. In Carlsbad, you can go down to the train station, take the train down to San Diego. You've got public transportation that got the coaster down there. You've got nothing to go into Palomar. I hear more and more planes now, and I know that you can hear jet planes for a good 5 miles away. I'm off of El Camino Real, which is where Palomar is. I'm not far from there. My home values are going to go down, just like they did around Long Beach and along John Wayne and some of the other airports. The home values go down. Maybe you're going to make more money with jobs, but you're going to lose it on all the people who are already here. So anyhow, I vote no. You really should not do this. This airport was a small airport, and the desire to expand it isn't really what people, wanted. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller.
Board of Supervisors. My name is Grayson Grove.
I am the owner of an aircraft management and charter company that operates both large and small aircraft out of the Palomar Airport since 1990. Palomar is a vital airport for business aviation and also the surrounding community. Our customers rely on this airport to conduct business as well as their personal travel, all done in a safe and efficient manner. This airport is the best airport, in my opinion, in my professional opinion, in the greater San Diego area to do just that. I am in full support of adopting this master plan update. It's been almost a decade since this plan has been updated. Over the last decade, I have seen much infrastructure put in place, and most recently the opening of our fixed base operator, the Carlsbad Jet Center. This plan update will add investment and also federal grant monies that will benefit every user and also the community. I see this master plan update as providing more safety enhancements for our customers and our future aircraft, which should be important to all of us. I encourage the board to select the D3 airport design standard for Palomar and approve the master plan update. I thank you all for your time today.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning to all members and season's greetings. My name is Steve Kress. I am a 25-year pilot and user of Palomar Airport, and I'm confident that adopting the Mcclellan Palomar Airport Master Plan D3 update, certifying the Master Plan Environmental Impact Report, and providing direction on airport sustainability creates a safer airport environment, not only for us pilots, but for those who live in the community, as well as returning regional passenger services. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hi, my name is John Botto with cleanup4kids.org. Please do not expand the airport. The plan has a lot of data on the money that can be made. There is nothing about what price will be paid for it. What lives are you willing to sacrifice? How many children will you make struggle with asthma? There are so many homes and schools right by the airport. Protecting human life and health is far more important than people making more money. Keep Palomar at B2. A longer runway just means more air and noise pollution, which hurts health. Things like asthma and lung disease, heart disease, cancer, and conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Air pollution is the world's largest environmental health threat, and we already have the worst air in the nation when combining smog and soot. There are also studies indicating exposure to community noise may increase rates of Alzheimer's and other dementias. There is a social cost to pollution, a cost that will be paid by the health and lives of those who live by the airport. A bigger airport means more air and noise pollution from the planes and from the increased truck and cars that go along with it. It means higher rates of pollution-related illnesses. How can the county justify dumping toxic pollution on residents? Has nothing been learned from the harmful effects of pollution at the harbor? Look at the long-term damage to health there. Look at the asthma rates. You should be taking actions to stop sacrifice zones, not making new ones. Please protect the health of children and do not expand the airport. Do not increase air pollution. Do not include noise pollution. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
My name is Victor Diaz. I am a member of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters. I live, work, and recreate in the vicinity of the project. I believe that I will be impacted by the environmental impacts of the project. The county should require the project to be built utilizing a local and skilled and trained workforce. Local hire and skilled and trained workforce requirements reduce construction-related environmental impacts while benefiting the local economy. In a recent 2020 report titled Putting California on a High Road, a Jobs and Climate Action Plan for 2030, the California Workforce Development Board concluded that investment in growing, diversifying, and upskilling California's workforce can positively affect returns on a climate mitigation effort. Just this year, the South Coast Air Quality Management District found that the use of a local state certified apprenticeship program or a skilled and trained workforce with a local hire component can result in air pollutant reductions. Other cities have not hesitated to apply skilled and trained workforce requirements for private development projects in their city. Recently, the city of Hayward in Northern California adopted skilled and trained workforce requirements into general plan and municipal code. Local skilled and trained workforce requirements can boost economic development, mitigate transportation and greenhouse impacts by minimizing vehicle miles traveled. The project's environmental analysis is critically flawed in a number of ways, including the EIR project description is not accurate, stable, or finite. The EIR defers development of critical environmental mitigation measures. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to our next caller.
My name is Steve Linke, 19-year resident of Carlsbad, far from the airport though. As a disclosure, I'm the vice chair of the Carlsbad Traffic and Mobility Commission, but I'm commenting here as an individual following up on my letters expressing concerns about the traffic studies in the EIR. Those traffic studies currently only address vehicle level of service, and most of those limited studies were done using inaccurate, professionally discredited methods that significantly underestimated congestion. You can just look at the rather absurd results presented in the master plan that claim that Palomar Airport Road is level of service A both before and after all the projects. Our general plan update in 2015 prohibited the use of those methods, and they should not be used. Perhaps more importantly, though, you should conduct a vehicle mile traveled analysis. The VMT sketch in the current EIR predicts up to 1.5 million new vehicle trips and nearly 10 million new vehicle miles traveled per year, but it does not assess the impacts. Also, the economic analysis predicts huge increases in sightseeing activities by tens of thousands of new visitors per year. Those numbers should be included in a formal VMT analysis, including mitigation measures to offset the impacts of the resulting GHGs. Based on the way that Carlsbad currently treats master plans, if you certify this EIR, all projects for the next 20 years will effectively be exempt from meaningful environmental studies related to traffic. So please update your transportation studies before certifying this. Even if you're not legally obligated to do these updates because you're grandfathered in, it is the right thing to do for the sake of the environment and for the continuing quality of Carlsbad's multimodal transportation network. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We will go to our next caller.
Hi, dear San Diego Board of Supervisors. My name is Marisol. Hi, and I'm a community advocate with CleanEarthForKids.org. I'm calling to speak to oppose the master plan update. I'm a Carlsbad resident who lives near the airport. My family has personally experienced negative effects of the noise pollution from the airport. I have children with asthma and compromised immune systems. I have a child who suffers from extreme restlessness and is unable to focus due to the excessive noise of the airplane. Noise pollution has been shown to have negative effects on children's brains. A study of U.S. children between the ages of 6 and 19 showed that children exposed to consistent noise living near an airport or busy highway have more trouble with tasks at school. A study found that reading, attention, and problem solving and memory are most affected. Environmental noise such as living near an airport can impair children's speech perception, listening, and children's speech development. Some children with language and attention disorders have even more difficulties. We do not want the airport expansion. The expansion will increase the size and number of planes flying in and out of the Mcclellan Palomar Airport. This will also cause more air pollution. My children have asthma, and asthma is the most common chronic illness among children. Air pollution causes many health conditions, lung and heart disease, cancer, and is linked to diabetes. Our children need clean air to breathe. There is no economic gain that justifies adding more pollution to our air. Our children have a right to breathe clean air and have a chance to have a healthy life in the future. And truly, we need clean air for everyone, especially our seniors, children, our pets, all of the individuals who have asthma and respiratory sensitivities. We need to protect our air quality. And we desperately need and we deserve the right of mandatory quiet hours for our communities. And this should be executed immediately. We have children trying to study and students trying to study that can't accomplish their tasks with continuous interruptions. Noise is affecting their productivity, and it's also affecting their self-confidence because it's something outside of their control. We also have hardworking parents and adults who deserve to come home and to be able to get proper rest and proper sleep. The proposed airport plan harms public health.
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Please vote no.
We'll go to the next caller.
Mary Ann Viney. Please retain Palomar as a B2 airport with EMAS for safety, but no extension. Act sustainably, protect the health and safety of Carlsbad, Vista, Oceanside, San Marcos, and Escondido residents who live near the airport, as well as our children, grandchildren, and future generations. Despite much progress in reducing air pollution, reducing smog levels to what the EPA considers safe for everyone to breathe continues to be challenging for the county. According to a report from Environment California called Trouble in the Air, levels of soot and smog in the county were not health protective for many days out of the year in 2020. The report says that damage to public health from smog and soot has been linked to many serious health issues, and also states that air pollution is harmful even at levels the EPA considers safe, and that there may be no safe level of air pollution, including smog and soot. The staff should re-examine all of these issues from the report, and I request that. Sustainability opportunities that could help protect public health and safety have also been outlined in the agenda, but please wait until a finalized sustainability plan is available for public review, comment, and engagement before adoption of the master plan and PEIR. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hi, this is Dr. Peter Anderson, representing Sierra Club. Sierra Club is opposed to the expansion of Palomar Airport. We want it to remain a B2 neighborhood regional airport. First of all, the county is under court order to come up with a climate action plan that's been somewhat delayed, and we're looking forward to it. But the judge has said, please listen to Sierra Club suggestions. So here is a suggestion. This airport expansion will blow up the climate action plan. Now, it's true that the county can't regulate air traffic, but it has to inventory all the greenhouse gas produced by any project, including this project. It's not like the molecules really care whether it's regulated by the county or the federal government. What will happen if this expansion is approved is that there will be loads of greenhouse gas associated with construction. Then there's additional greenhouse gas associated with transportation. And then increased numbers of jet traffic will increase greenhouse gas additionally. All that has to be accounted for. And what you don't see a single word of in the EIR is how is all that greenhouse gas going to be mitigated? Where is their carbon sequestration plan? What open spaces are going to be preserved to sequester that carbon? This is a failure from the climate action plan, and I think it'll blow up, in part, the climate action plan. Now, let me be clear, secondly, that this is a foot in the door to larger aircraft. A 900-foot extension will permit Boeing 737, Airbus 318, and Airbus 320s to safely land at this airport. What will happen then is they will have more traffic and
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you for...
We will go to our next caller.
Thank you. Dr. Reza Hidayat, electronics and communication engineer living and working from home in Heron Bay neighborhood in Carlsbad. There are daily violations by planes from this airport, flying only a few hundred feet above the residential area around Cannon Road and El Camino Real. FAA rules requires more than 1,000 feet. My many safety complaints in WebTrack left without response from the airport. Only recent reply, no action. Only asking residents to report to FAA. Patterns 24D, 12A, and C. Please refer to Appendix D, page 37. Fly over residential areas where violating pilots fly as low as few hundred feet above residential area, a major safety and noise concern. Note that the adjacent patterns 24D, 12B, and D fly over less residential area, and yet the pilots, rewarded by the inaction from the county and the airport official, choose the patterns that bring severe safety and noise concerns. The noise analysis provided by the county is flawed due to not considering the large percentage of the flights take patterns over these residential areas. For instance, during a 30-minute afternoon walk in the neighborhood, I regularly could record low-flying planes almost every 5 minutes. Imagine your lawnmower is operated in your backyard for 10 seconds every 10 minutes, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. This leads to less than 65 dB noise on average. But I assume all agree that this is very annoying. I sometimes have to use earplugs to walk in my backyard or the neighborhood. The airport officials have not penalized violating pilots for endangering the safety and violating comfort and peace of the residents. Nor San Diego County, with legal resources funded by our tax, has represented residents in their complaints to FAA. Given the inaction in play, the approval of the airport expansion would only add more safety concerns, increased noise and pollution.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Eric Bruvold from the San Diego North Economic Development Council. You've heard from staff's report, and what I would simply add in respect to our support for a D3 designation along with a runway expansion is we know that there's demand for a modest, and I would underline that, a modest amount of commercial airline service out of Palomar Airport Road to serve the over 10,000 employees that work at the adjacent business park, as well as the surrounding residents of North County, which total 1.2 million people that live north of SR 56. The impacts of that would probably be mitigated as many of those trips are down to Lindbergh Field or up to Orange County or over to Riverside to fly out, and a modest amount of commercial aviation service out of Palomar would be both good for the economy and good for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Leanne Lerner in Encinitas. Palomar Airport Road at Palomar Airport should not be considered for expansion. It needs to stay small and not be a commercial airport. There are larger airports just a few minutes away. Making Palomar bigger will not only ruin North County with traffic, it will bring more air pollution to our communities. If we wanted to live by a bigger airport for convenience to fly out, we would have purchased homes near San Diego or John Wayne or any of the other airports around. There is already too much air traffic over our homes that sometimes shakes the windows. If my door were open, you'd hear some flying by right now. We bought our home to live in a quiet farming and house community. Planes already fly too low over our homes and pollute our air, contributing to health problems. Planes crash and start fires. We shouldn't be doing anything that contributes to wildfires in the area. We need mandatory quiet hours implemented, and we do not want more larger and louder planes. There's a loud plane every night at 10:30 over our home. We must preserve our quality of life by stopping any expansion of Palomar Airport. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hello, Hello, dear Board of Supervisors. My name is Suzanne Hume, and I am the Educational Director and founder of CleanEarthForKids.org. Our youth, single moms, families, and seniors who live in low-income housing near the airport and do not have the money and resources to move away from this noisy, polluting airport are asking you to say no to the airport expansion. Additionally, all of us working for children's health, public health, equity, environmental justice, racial and social justice, and climate justice are urging you to say no to the airport expansion. Large, powerful organizations with national reach, like Sierra Club, are also urging you to say no. There are over 2,000 verified public signatures, and many residents that are concerned that their voices won't even be heard. Our kids, families, and seniors are already dealing with a noisy airport with no quiet hours and no restrictions on flight paths, and that must change. Loud, low-flying planes already result in children and families with disrupted sleep, difficulty concentrating on their schoolwork, and making phone calls and working from home. People say, and our kids, that this is so depressing and frustrating. It gives them feelings of failure and defeat. And I can tell you, our kids have to leave where they're living and get rides to other communities to work on projects and videos because it is so loud living there that they can't make a video, even a 1, 2, or 2 minute video, without being interrupted. And by the way, our Clean Earth for Kids videos are making videos to ask you for protection. Thank you very much. Please say no.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hello, my name is Javier Santizo. I'm a local union carpenter. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for this morning's meeting. I'm calling in opposition to this plan to allow the people, the entities in charge of this plan, to take a look, take a minute and think about the inclusion, the requirement for local skilled and trained workforce. It has already been noted that local workforce reduces the environmental impact. When you're local, you're not having to bring outside workforce to help build this project. Also, professional, trained, local, skilled workforce. It would allow us to complete a development like this on time, safely, and under budget, and minimize the environmental impact by the accuracy of the delivery of a construction like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to our next caller.
Hello and good morning. My name is Sam Ward. I'm a 19-year resident of Carlsbad. As you've heard this morning, there is substantial community opposition from Carlsbad, Vista, and San Marcos, the flight path for Palomar Airport, to the proposed expansion of the runway. I urge you to consider these voices, but please also take a deep dive into the assumptions underlying the staff recommendation to the board, which I believe are fundamentally flawed. I would encourage the board to take an 800 to 900 foot expansion of the Palomar runway off the table. While staff spoke at length about the potential return of commercial airport service to Palomar, I believe that there is little likelihood of successful passenger commercial service taking hold at the airport. I say this as a frequent business traveler who discovered that the prior commercial service, both by American and later by California Pacific, was insufficient to meet the needs of a business traveler. Each airline provided at best 1 or 2 flights a day, limiting utility for business travelers. And I know this because prior to 2015, I tried using the service, and it simply didn't work for me, forcing me to go to either San Diego or John Wayne, 2 large commercial airports that are both within quick driving range of our community. The regional service suggested by staff is simply not sufficient to support the number of flights necessary to make the airport a useful option for business travelers. Thus, the assumptions regarding the economic benefit of a large-scale expansion of the runway are fundamentally flawed. Indeed, some of the speakers you've heard today speaking in favor of the expansion, including, I believe, the CEO of the Jet Centers, have themselves indicated that the airport is unsuitable to significant expansion of commercial capacity, thus making commercial service unviable. If that's the case, let's not invest taxpayer money in an unnecessary expansion of the runway that will not provide substantial economic.
Time is up. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Hello, my name is Alex Gertson. I'm Director of Airports at the National Business Aviation Association, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate virtually from Washington, D.C. Good morning, Chair Fletcher, members of the board. We urge you to ensure the master plan effort moves forward without delay and the associated D3 aircraft design group enhancements, runway extensions, and EMAS installations are implemented. I would like to note that we also provided written comments, and thank you for your attention to industry input on this important item. At NBAA, we represent over 11,000 member companies and professional members who operate aircraft as part of their business or are involved with business aviation. Our members include numerous tenants and users of the Mcclellan Palomar Airport, and you have heard from a number of them already just earlier this morning. We appreciate the county's continued support of general aviation and value the multi-year effort Mr. Brackett and the airport staff have put forward on the master plan. The airport is an essential economic engine for the region, providing many jobs right at the airport, as well as thousands of jobs in the area at businesses that depend on its proximity for air transportation. The proposed safety enhancements are essential to support its current state and to sustain its future utility. The goal is to simply allow the infrastructure to safely accommodate the current user base and its aircraft fleet. The decisions made at this juncture should not be taken lightly, as we can't afford to further delay the safety enhancements. We must nurture this valuable county asset, not suffocate it. The goal of the proposed changes is to meet the requirements of FAA safety standards for the D3 aircraft and the predominant aircraft in the current general aviation fleet operating at the airport today. NBA and its members are here to support you and the airport staff to ensure a strong, viable future for arguably one of the most valuable county assets, its airport. Please vote for the D3 enhancements, runway extension, and EMAS installations. Thank you again for your consideration of our input.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller. Looks like that caller dropped off. We'll hear from the next one.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Board of Supervisors. My name is Roger Earl, and I'm a resident of Carlsbad and the hospitality manager at Carlsbad Jet Center, where we focus on safety, hospitality, teamwork, community, innovation, and sustainability. We say safety first as our primary value solely because safety is truly the heartbeat of our operation at Carlsbad. Let's all together focus this vote on the word safety alone. I strongly support the master plan as written and see great benefit to both existing users and all citizens of North County in the safety enhancements provided by this plan. The runway extension allows our pilots and passengers to land their aircraft with much more confidence and allows much more aircraft traffic flow to come into our homes directly and safely. More businesses using our conventions without the need to fly into San Diego, John Wayne, or LAX. More people spending valuable time at our beaches and flying directly here without the need to go anywhere else and be stuck in traffic on the I-5, 405, or 78. More people dining at our restaurants and bars, more people resting at our hotels, including the historic La Costa and Aviara. More people relaxing at our spas, more families laughing together in Legoland, more families witnessing sea life at the Sea Life Aquarium, and more people smelling fresh flowers at the flower fields, and more people teeing off at our beautiful golf courses. In my opinion, Carlsbad is one of the greatest cities in the world, above New York, Tokyo, London, Sydney, Paris, Rome, Dubai, to name a few. and has a greater future as we continue to make these changes to allow visitors to land safely here and directly right in our city at Palomar Airport, attracting the public from all over the country and, of course, the world. The D3 expansion plan will not only enhance safety and comfort alone, however, with some of the examples above, will massively strengthen our local economy, travel, tourism, and certainly increase employment in hospitality and the construction industry. Thank you for saying yes to safety and supporting the future of our home, of our Carlsbad. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
My name is Susie Thorley, and I live in Carlsbad. I appreciate that you will listen to us today. Options B and C of the master plan frightens me. It proposes to move the runway north and lengthen it, which would only invite more and larger aircraft. Since Mcclellan Palomar is open 24/7 every single day, we will have many more late night, early morning flights that awaken residents. It's already a problem with the business jets and private jets taking off at midnight or 3 a.m. and also landing within those suggested quiet hours. These pilots show no regard for any of the residents surrounding the airport. This is so disrespectful. The pilots are noticed that there are voluntary noise abatement procedures, and they obviously just thumb their nose at these procedures as there's no penalty for any violations. I know that you have pressure from businesses and airport shareholders, but please, I beg you to remember your constituents who will be adversely affected by this plan. Should you choose to approve the master plan update, keep the runway where it is and do not lengthen it, and approve the EMAS for safety at the West End, option A. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Honorable Board of Supervisors. My name is Kay Sundaram. I have been a proud resident and homeowner in Carlsbad in a neighborhood adjacent to Palomar Airport for 13 years. I fly small aircraft based at Palomar for business. Also, I am an aviation educator focused on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I spend a great deal of time introducing aviation to children ages 6 to 18. I support the master plan, and I see tremendous benefit to both the existing users and North County citizens of all ages. I take great pride in being involved in my community, and several years ago I completed the City of Carlsbad Citizens Academy. This was a detailed program designed to help Carlsbad residents engage with their city government and dive into the plans for development, growth management, recreation, and the environment. What struck me the most is the city's emphasis on maintaining facilities and their upkeep of our infrastructure and rec and educational facilities. And our county does a great job with this, so it's really hard for me to fathom anyone standing against heightened safety modernizations of the airport. It's not about growth, it's about safety. I've had my commercial pilot certificate for 32 years, and as an aviation educator, I know how this airport is vital to pilot training and, more importantly, to STEM education for children. The airport is STEM. I have taken thousands of kids to the airport over the 20 years, and this airport is an incredible asset to our community. And an important fact is that our future air transportation system is dependent on our youngsters and the training they receive now. Please know that between now and 2036, 25 years, the aviation industry will need to supply more than 2 million new commercial airline pilots, maintenance technicians, and cabin crew. And the source is AOPA, that's Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the world's largest trade organization. We have achieved this much only if we invest in our youngsters.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Now and invest.
We will go to the next caller.
This is Charles Lubash. I am part of a group, Paragon Airlines. We have been looking forward to going into Carlsbad and providing service for the community. I've listened to the opposition and recognize it, and obviously, share some of their issues. But some of the issues facing Carlsbad are expansion. One should know that the charter business is now booming. The airport can expect more aircraft coming in over the next year or two. As opposed to that, Paragon Airlines, in formation, was seeking to be a scheduled airline service, serving the community. The issue on B2 versus D3, B2 will be stressed. And if it's stressed, or God forbid, a mishap, the FAA will step in and expand those runways. That's a given. It's happened other places. More to the point of serving the community, we believe in the D3 safety enhancements and the upgraded master plan. We think it's beneficial to the entire community. We think it's economically beneficial. It's beneficial to the 1.2 million residents that are in the immediate area, North County. And we urge that, again, the Board of Supervisors review this very carefully. Expansion will take place, and it's better to do it in a controlled fashion rather than the FAA. I urge the Board of Supervisors to examine that.
We'll go to the next caller.
Greetings, County Supervisors. I'm Howard Krause, 30-year resident of Carlsbad and a board member of North County Advocates. We support our neighbors who are requesting safety improvements to Palomar Airport, but no significant runway extension. The EIR does not adequately account for the extra greenhouse gases, noise, and soot from additional flights. As you've heard, the current noise and pollution situation is already quite problematic. Nighttime quiet hours should be mandatory. The few potential passenger flights that might perhaps be useful to some residents do not offset the negative impacts of an expansion. So please respect the lives of local residents over the desires of some wealthy business interests that want to fly larger private jets and presumably freight from Carlsbad rather than from San Diego International or perhaps John Wayne. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hi, my name is Najma Sepper, and I am a homeowner in the Poinsettia community in Carlsbad, and I urge you to not expand the Palomar Airport. Doing so would dramatically lower the quality of life for tens of thousands of residents in North County by increasing noise and air pollution. Our homes, our children's schools, the beaches, and the parks would be plagued by constant warring jets. Expanding the runway so that larger private jets and private bigger planes can fly at all hours of the day and night is not in the interest of our community or the county. An expansion of the airport would adversely also affect tourism in the North County. The resorts in Carlsbad, the flower fields, Legoland, and the beaches would all become less appealing with constant noise from jets overhead. With respect to environmental sustainability, it's hard to see how an airport expansion would promote this goal. Larger jets will release more greenhouse gases. Adding electric vehicle charging stations at the airport hardly addresses the increased air pollution that will inevitably result from the expansion. Please keep Carlsbad a safe and inviting place for the tens of thousands of residents and visitors who enjoy our community. Please keep Palomar Airport as a B2 airport with no extension. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will go to our next caller. You may need to unmute your phone. You're in the call-in queue. This is for Cal. You may need to unmute your phone. We will come back.
My name is Graham Foley, a resident of Carlsbad, and I'd like to speak against approving the package. I've sent you a packet called with actually I sent you a document with a heading, "Facts do not lie. History does not belong to us. We belong to it." Rather than going into that package at this point, I'm assuming you've read it. I'd like to address some of the comments made by the county officials in that a 737 will not be coming to Carlsbad. The term 737 is a general term for a class C plane that'll carry over 70 passengers. That's the way the public uses that term. And the fact is that an Airbus A220, 63 tons plane, carries 135 passengers, requires a runway less than 5,000 feet. In fact, it operates daily at London City Airport, which is only 4,948-foot runway. So I'm getting tired of the county people just not telling the truth, to be honest. Also, this year, check the county records, you've received 12,733 noise complaints. Last year, you received 5,820 noise complaints. Previous years, you received less than that. So the noise traffic is getting worse. Nobody's doing anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hi, my name is Christopher McDonald. I've been a resident of Carlsbad for 27 years, and I am in support of the D3 master plan with the safety enhancements. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
James DePass. Hello, I'm James DePass. I'm on the board of directors at the Bresty Ranch Homeowners Association. Bresty Ranch is a community in Carlsbad that lies in the flight path of Palomar Airport. Planes fly low over our home on approach every day. We constantly hear jets taking off at the airport. We smell jet fuel and exhaust regularly. There are no quiet hours at at Palomar Airport like there are at John Wayne and Lindbergh Field. Planes can take off and land whenever they want without penalty. This is incredibly disruptive to our sleeping patterns and overall health. Expanding this airport will increase air pollution, noise pollution, and car traffic. It will also decrease property values. This airport is not only a regional airport, it's an international airport with corporate jets flying to China and other world destinations. Expansion will only increase this traffic. San Diego Board of Supervisors, you are elected by the people and the people have spoken. We do not want this airport expanded. As mentioned in the comments, 2 people supported and over 100 people opposed it. Airport expansion is bad for the community, cities surrounding the airport, and county of San Diego. Would any of you want this in your community? Do the right thing. Keep the airport as is. B2's option for safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Recalling Cal. Chair Fletcher, seeing no movement, that would conclude public comment for this item.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who called in. Just before we get into discussion on this, just a little scheduling up for the day. I think we'll try and get through this item, finish this item, take a quick break for lunch, and then we'll come back. We have 3 remaining items on our agenda. We have a time certain closed session at 3 p.m., so post-lunch, if we can get back and do those 3 items by 3 p.m., then we can recess into closed session without having to come back afterwards. But with that, let me go to board members. I know there'll be some questions and some comments, and maybe what we'll do is kind of hear from folks and then try and encapsulate that in a motion. But we'll start first with Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I want to address some of the things that some of the folks had talked about the quiet hours and why are there no quiet hours at Palomar Airport. And the reason is the FAA, I think it was like in the mid-90s or something like that, it was quite a while ago, put a moratorium on quiet hours. Lindbergh Field has quiet hours. You can't take off. You're not supposed to take off. You're fined, I think, between 11:30 at night and 6:30 in the morning. You can land all night long. Orange County has, I think, quiet hours. It just, unfortunately, Palomar Airport wasn't, I guess, as much of an airport when they put in that moratorium to have quiet hours. That's a FAA's ruling. I'm sure it might be able to be changed. I'd be happy to, support a letter going to them to maybe put in some reasonable quiet hours. But right now, that's a FAA moratorium on not allowing any more quiet hours at any airports in the U.S. On the 737s, there's 2 factors. I was a pilot for Delta Airlines for 33 years. And then I sat on the board of the airport board at Lindbergh Field for 12 years. There's more than just the runway length. Yes, runway length is a factor, but it's also the stress of and the weight of the aircraft and the stress of the runway. What I've seen, I've asked our staff, is that if any expansion, any future runway, or moving the runway, would those runways be stressed and/or taxiways be stressed to handle the weight of, as we heard somebody say, an A320 with 63 tons. I know it's a lot, but if the air, so the stress of the runway itself, it has to be built to handle that weight. There's length, yes, but the weight is also a big factor as well. And that's, I know, one of the restricted reasons for Brown Field not being able to accept larger aircraft if they've got quite a long runway, but the runway isn't stressed to carry that weight. And so is it true, Cam, I guess, that any expansion that's proposed here is not going to be stressed, the runways are not going to be stressed to carry or manage the weight of a large aircraft like a 737 or even the A320 that was mentioned?
Through the chair, Supervisor Desmond, that is correct. The weight bearing capacity of the Palomar Airport runway isn't expected to increase or identified to increase in the master plan. To give a comparison, the weight-bearing capacity, the total weight-bearing capacity of that runway is a third of what the weight-bearing capacity is of the John Wayne Airport. So there's nothing in the master plan that increases the weight-bearing capacity of that runway, and the runway cannot handle the weight of those aircraft.
Okay, and so I just wanted to address a couple of those things that came up, and they're valid, reasons. So, what I want to thank staff for your update and the continued work on this master plan. I'm appreciative of all you've done over the years in developing the plan, and over the past several months, providing the additional updates so that we can move forward, hopefully today. You know, my priorities for Palomar Airport master plan update are to ensure the airport is safe and as quiet as possible for the aircraft using the airport today and in the future. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty excited about the sustainability plan, where I hope that in that sustainability plan, we put in the infrastructure today, now, for those future aircraft, the quieter aircraft, the electric aircraft. You know, I know there's fueling stations out there. Maybe we put in more, at least the infrastructure to handle electric charging stations for future aircraft. So I think it's kind of exciting and an opportunity for us to put in that sustainable infrastructure at this point in time. As was mentioned, over 40% of the jets based at the airport right now are larger than the safety standards used to design airport facilities for those types of aircraft. And as I said, I want to make sure the airport is safe and as quiet as possible to accommodate the aircraft that the FAA is allowing to operate at the airport today. Once an airplane gets on a taxiway or a runway, they are in the air, they are under the purview of the FAA, not under us at all. We don't have any jurisdiction. We run the facilities and maintain the facilities, but an aircraft in the air is FAA. And it's not going to create another large regional airport by John Wayne. I have no intention of supporting anything like that, and that's not what's being proposed today. So the benefits, I don't know if you can bring up that CNEL screen or this with the quieter, the noise contours. I see, I don't know, if you want to leave up Supervisor Lawson-Reamer, that's fine. But the noise contours that you showed, you know, there's benefits to maximizing, you know, the runway length or bring a longer runway. Planes get airborne sooner. I mean, as we all know, the higher the airplane is, no matter how much noise it's producing, the higher the airplane is away from you, the less you hear it. And lengthening the runway means airplanes are going to get higher sooner. Your takeoff, you're going to get airborne sooner, and most of the noise footprint is going to be over the runway instead of out over the neighborhoods. That's why we saw in those contour lines, the noise contours, that it was much closer to the airport as opposed to currently. It also increases the margin of safety for the aircraft, and more efficiently, the aircraft can more efficiently use it at longer runways. So I'm going to go ahead with an actual motion running through our sheet here. Actually, I'm pretty much in favor of the full expansion that the Palomar Airport Advisory Committee had proposed and had unanimously put forward. But I'm going to recommend the hybrid one, which is option B, an enhanced facility now, B2, and modified standards compliance for the future, same as option A, with adding the future design, D3 design standards conditioned on addressing the conditional use permit and the runway protection requirements, and requiring and returning to the board to consider D3 design standards and runway extension up to 900 feet. I think we need that option for the additional runway. May not go up to the full 900 feet, but I'd like to have that in there just in case, if and when we do go to the D3, if it's approved at a later date, to have that option. So I'm going to recommend option 1B. And let's see. On the issue 1B then, by selecting 1B, also 2A.
Just so we're clear, Supervisor, okay. You're saying 1B with up to 900 feet instead of 200 feet?
Yes. We could do the 200 feet, but I'd like to have the option. If we have to go longer, it's more effective to go longer. So I'd put in the 900. It's open for discussion.
Okay.
But that would be my motion now, to up to 900 feet. Primarily because the D3 final goes to 800 feet. And so I'd like to have that option out there already, if that's possible. And then on option number 2, option A, to adopt the Mcclellan Palomar Airport Master Plan update based on the selected recommendation of 1B with 900 feet, including the potential runway extensions and other actions in item 3. And to have all of item 3, I guess by selecting 2A, that does give us item 3. And then the recommendation 4 to be option B, that this would direct staff to prepare a countywide airport system sustainability plan with a priority initially on Palomar Airport and measures to start there. So that's my motion. I just have a couple more questions or comments. I did want to ask staff. We've heard a lot of noise complaints, the number one issue that we hear always. And when I was mayor of San Marcos, I actually was on a committee. We developed the committee through the PAC. We came up with the voluntary noise abatement arrival plan, because there wasn't one at that point in time. So we came up with a voluntary noise abatement arrival. We put the maps and charts in all of the schools at the airport, all of the fixed base operators, all the operators in and out of Palomar Airport. We gave them that information. And I know it's out there, and I've seen it. And it's posted on many of the bulletin boards out there. But I'd like to see the county continue to engage with everybody and the neighbors to try to do the best that we can, and maybe even facilitate a meeting with the community and the FAA to discuss noise concerns in the future. Is that something staff would be willing to do?
Through the chair, Supervisor Desmond, absolutely. We hosted a meeting with the PAC and the FAA recently, and we'd be happy to host future meetings.
Okay, then I also have the another question about noise. It's regulated by the FAA. The county works collaboratively with the airport users to mitigate the aircraft noise through the voluntary noise abatement program. Could you explain a little bit about that voluntary noise abatement program to give people an understanding of you're right, there's no fines. I think I heard that out there. But could you give an explanation of how that works?
Through the chair, Supervisor Desmond, certainly. So the FAA approved Palomar to have what we've been terming as a voluntary noise abatement program, emphasis on the word voluntary. Nevertheless, the voluntary noise abatement program at Palomar identifies a number of ways in which to try to work to reduce aircraft noise in and around Palomar Airport. So, for example, we have voluntary quiet hours. We've talked about that. We have voluntary arrival and departure procedures. So how aircraft take off and depart the field or arrive to the field are those arrival and departure procedures. We identify approaches and departures that try to avoid residential areas to the maximum extent possible. There are a number of other procedures within this, but what we do is we work with all of the users, the airport pilots and the flight schools and the different associations to try to, first of all, educate them that we have a voluntary noise abatement program, and then to encourage their compliance. But it's also a growing program. It's an evolving program. So we worked with community stakeholders to receive input, their ideas, and then try to incorporate those ideas or improvements for that program into it. And just recently, the Palomar Airport Advisory Committee did just that. They had a subcommittee where they solicited input from the community, provided recommendations back to the staff, and we took those recommendations and we're implementing them right now. So it's a continual improvement program.
Okay, and I can tell the folks that pilots are aware of voluntary noise abatement procedures. We are aware. We can't always 100% abide or by them. You get a nice Saturday afternoon and there's like 10 airplanes in the pattern. And it's hard to completely abide and stay over just the industrial areas. But we're aware, primarily because we know that the struggles airports have in being good neighbors and trying to keep the viability of the airport open. I can tell you through the pilot communities that I've been involved with, we're aware of them. We try to abide as best we can. Sometimes a tower will tell you to extend your approach or downwind or whatever, your pattern altitudes, things like that. So it's not always we're able to accommodate that, but we are well aware, and everybody wants to abide as best they can, because we realize the tension that's between the pilots and neighbors. So I'm happy, my office is happy to facilitate any communication that we can do, and I think we need to act with urgency on getting this master plan moved forward. It's safe, it's going to enhance safety, it's going to also make things quieter, I think, at the airport. So there's,
Excuse me, Supervisor Desmond.
I'll let my motions.
Hey, excuse me, everyone had a chance to speak. We're not going to interrupt the proceedings of the meeting, okay? Ma'am, you're interrupting the proceedings of the meeting, and I'm asking you to stop. You had an opportunity to speak. Now, the rules of procedure apply every day that we meet, whether we're dealing with vaccines and public health or whether we're dealing with anyone else. Everyone had an opportunity to speak, and the board is going to have the ability to deliberate without interruption. So I'm going to ask the members to please refrain from interrupting the proceedings of the meeting. Supervisor, continue.
Well, pretty much done. I just want to reiterate, the motion is 1B3, I guess 1B3 up to 903, 2A, 3, all of 3, and 4B.
Thank you. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Let me unmute. Thank you so much. This was very helpful. I really appreciate all the work that staff put into this, as well as all the testimonies and participation by so many members of the public. I actually have a number of questions for staff. I think what I'm very concerned about, obviously, is making sure that the people who live near the airport are not unduly impacted by increasing noise. We heard lots and lots of testimonies of people who, they bought their homes thinking they were living in a quiet neighborhood, and have seen that quiet enjoyment diminish over time. So I just wanted to follow up on Supervisor Desmond's questions regarding noise. I wanted to better understand what can be done to reduce or bracket the times of days during which flights occur, as well as the number of flights in order to address some of these noise concerns.
Through the chair, Supervisor Lawson-Remer, as Supervisor Desmond mentioned, the FAA has established a moratorium on having quiet hours. So while it is not impossible to establish quiet hours, the FAA is the sole authority to be able to do that. So we do have voluntary noise quiet hours, and largely the aircraft that operate there follow those. As to your question of what could be done, certainly, the county could reach out to the FAA and ask them if that is a possibility. I will say that that has been done in the past, and the FAA has turned that down.
And when did they establish the moratorium on quiet hours, and why?
Supervisor Lawson, it was in the 1990s. I'm trying to find the date. And the FAA has established essentially authority over all air commerce, and including airports. And so what they asserted is that they wanted to say that there's a moratorium on quiet hours as part of managing the nation's air transportation system. I can't answer questions beyond that, what was, the impetus behind it.
Have there been, so this was in the 90s, this is what, 25 years ago. So has there been a single other airport nationwide that quiet hours have been established since that moratorium from the FAA on quiet hours? I mean, is this a moratorium on local governments imposing quiet hours, or is this a moratorium on the FAA imposing quiet hours?
No, it's actually a moratorium. So the Airport Noise and Capacity Act of 1990 was actually the legislation that was passed that prohibits airport owners and operators from implementing curfews without FAA approval. I can't answer the question of whether or not there have been any airports that have been granted quiet hours since that moratorium, but staff can certainly do the research and provide an answer to that question. There are some airports, as Supervisor Desmond alluded to, in the nation that had quiet hours prior to the moratorium. San Diego International being one of them, and there are others that also had quiet hours that were essentially grandfathered in.
Understood. I mean, obviously you can't have like a retroactive law, but but in 1990, FAA said no local airport owner can establish quiet hours without the FAA's prior approval. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and we don't know whether or not they've granted those approvals in any other instances, but we do know that when we've applied in the past, they've refused to grant those approvals for quiet hours.
Through the chair, Supervisor Lossenreimer, that is correct.
And do we know what the evaluation criteria they have for when and why they would approve or not approve quiet hours?
Through the chair, Supervisor Lossenreimer, it's primarily through their evaluation of the noise in and around the airport. And the FAA has established noise threshold, and that was covered. Part of that was covered in the presentation, if you recall, the community noise equivalent level, so CNEL, and that is an average noise level equivalent where nighttime operations have a higher weight to it. Nevertheless, that's the standard by which the FAA considers that there are significant noise impacts to a community. In Palomar's case, there are no residential areas within the 65 CNEL noise equivalent threshold, and so the FAA has determined that Palomar is not noise impacted. That's not to say that there aren't folks that are bothered by noise, that's clear, but that is the threshold by which the FAA evaluates airports.
Understood. So it's almost as if the problem's not bad enough in the FAA's opinion for them to make rules. So if there was more traffic, you might be above the 65 threshold, and then the FAA might view it as noise impacted. A little bit of a chicken and the egg problem.
I would say that it is certainly a threshold by which the FAA evaluates noise. I understand the logic of what you're saying. However, I will say that the county has evaluated noise on several occasions and continues to monitor noise out there. And in the FAA's view, it doesn't. The Palomar Airport is not a noise-impacted airport.
Currently, but if things change, it might become a noise-impacted airport.
That is correct, Supervisor Lossenreimer. The airport master plan, however, is not forecasted to see increases in noise, as we showed in the presentation. Actually, if there's a lengthening of a runway, the noise contours actually move further or reduce further because aircraft can climb higher quicker before they're over areas outside of the airport. In addition,
yeah, I appreciated that. That was interesting. It was also interesting to hear my colleague, who's a pilot himself, comment on that. So I appreciated that analysis. It's a little bit counterintuitive. I think what I'm concerned about is whether making an airport. I know my understanding is about 40% of the aircraft are currently the D3 type, and that if we make the airport safer for those aircraft, that we actually might end up with more of them. The sort of, if you build it, they will come. I think that's what I'm hearing the neighbors be concerned about, that if we make it a better airport and a safer airport, you might actually end up with more traffic. So I just wanted you to kind of comment on that and the concerns expressed by the neighbors in that regard.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, I totally understand those concerns. When the airport master plan was developed and they did a forecast, they forecasted aircraft operations, but they also went back and looked in time at aircraft operations at Palomar. At its peak, the number of aircraft operations, and let's define an aircraft operation, it's essentially a takeoff or a landing. So at its peak, the number of takeoffs and landings that Palomar was hosting on an annual basis was nearly 300,000. Right now we're at about 140 to 140,000, so we're roughly half of the peak. When the master plan forecasted aviation activity out into the future, the highest activity level that it is forecasting is 208,000 annual operations, so nowhere near the peak operations. I think it's also important to note that while I understand the logic of that if we build it, they will come, the truth of the matter is that nothing in the master plan proposes to increase the capacity of the airport. In other words, there is nothing in the master plan that is trying to increase the number of aircraft that can take off and land in a given day.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I understand that's not the intent. I just want to be, really mindful of, and I appreciate all the analysis. It's been incredibly helpful on a very complex issue. I just want to be mindful that we're really addressing head on the concerns that have been raised by the neighbors. And what the concern I've heard over and over is, one, it's a lot of noise. Two, it's potentially some traffic. And three, that the noise and traffic will get worse because you'll have more aircraft if you have a bigger airport. And what you're saying is that you won't have more aircraft if we have a bigger airport. And so I just am trying to better understand the analysis as to why we think that having a better, safer airport will not lead to more traffic. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that you don't anticipate it's going to lead to more airport traffic because you're not actually expanding the capacity of the airport. You're just making it safer. So I think, is that correct? Am I understanding correctly?
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, that is correct.
Okay, so I think then the question, I have a couple additional follow-ups here, is one is when you did your analysis on projected future use of the airport, what are the drivers that determine where aircrafts choose to fly in and out of? Is safety at all a concern? I mean, how did we create that prediction, and why did we regarding sort of projected use, since we can't actually regulate how many people or how many aircraft come in and out? We're not able to do that. That's up to the FAA. So what are the sort of parameters that drive those predictions?
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, you're getting at the core of what the intent of the airport master plan is. So part of that planning process is creating a aviation forecast over the planning period. So in this case, it's a 20-year planning period out to 2036. The FAA outlines the procedures by which to evaluate the potential for future aviation activity. And it's not just aircraft departures and arrivals, it's also the number of based aircraft, how many passengers, how many cars, and the traffic. The FAA outlines that process, and it really starts from an international view down to a national, a regional, state, and then a local. So what the planners do is they look at all of the trends in the future for air travel, be it private or public. And they distill that down all the way down to the local level. In addition, the FAA puts out what's called a terminal area forecast, or TAF. So the FAA does something similar, and they look at all of those factors, and they do it for the nation, the region, the state, and even a local airport. So when the planners develop a forecast, they evaluate it against the terminal area forecast and then submit it to the FAA for their review and approval. In the case of Palomar, the The FAA has reviewed and approved the forecast, but it really comes down to all sorts of factors, including the future air travel, but also economic factors. Where is the industry headed? How are our aircraft changing? I will note that in the 1997, the previous master plan, it identified that the number of aircraft moving into the airport that were above the B2 design category into C3 was correctly identified. And it was also the forecasted activity levels, even though in the master plan were higher, they were similar. So there is some basis, by which we can look at historical, both from a Palomar's perspective, but also nationally on the forecasts.
So really kind of comes down to external factors that govern whether there's any compelling reasons to fly to Carlsbad as opposed to John Wayne versus San Diego versus, say, Tijuana. And those are things that are not actually part of the airport plan itself. Those are things that have to do with what's going on in the surrounding community and the global economy.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, I think it's both. I think it's what the airport, what the facilities are at the airport, but it is also can be driven by what are the demands of the community. So in North County, is there a demand for business and commercial air traffic? So it is certainly industry and driven by the economy.
Sorry, just a couple more questions. This is obviously a very, very important issue. It's been really contentious for a long time, and I think it's been hard to get to the bottom of what's at stake, right? Which is safety and, balancing the needs for safety for our aircraft with the very real needs for quiet and peace in people's communities. So I just appreciate your patience with me. In terms of our fee structure, or do we have regarding airport use? So I'm sort of a new line of questioning regarding fee structure. Is it possible to put additional fees on aircrafts based on hours of use so that we would be charging more for aircrafts that take off and land during certain hours that we wanted to de-incentivize, since we're not able to do that in a mandatory way because we're not the FAA?
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, that's a really insightful question, and the answer is that the FAA would have to approve it. So some airports do that. It's called slot restrictions. So highly congested airports can charge more for arrival and departure times. However, the FAA has to approve it. Because Palomar is not, quote unquote, a congested airport, I wouldn't foresee the FAA allowing that to occur. Nevertheless, that is certainly a possibility.
Okay, but we could request that they allow higher prices if they refuse to, we could do a dual part petition, which is one, can you please make quiet hours? And two, if you won't make quiet hours, can you at least let us charge more for planes that fly during those hours so that we de-incentivize flights? That would be possible for us to request of the FAA.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, absolutely. We could make any requests that the board chooses to make to the FAA. Absolutely.
Okay, and then in terms of what kind of flights that come in and out, do we have any ability to control that whatsoever, whether it's commercial or passenger or any kind of parameters, or we're just basically the facility and we don't have any say of what kind of flights?
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, the FAA does not allow airports to restrict any type of aviation activity, including the type of aircraft that is using a facility, except for two cases for efficiency and safety. To give a quick example of a safety issue, some airports are allowed to restrict parachuting operations because it conflicts with the safety of that airport. And to give an example of efficiency, some airports are allowed to restrict smaller aircraft from operating there because it interrupts the efficiency of the arrival and departures of larger aircraft. But again, the FAA would have to approve those.
Sorry, repeat that second one again. what you could restrict for efficiency?
So the FAA is the only authority that could restrict airport operations for efficiency purposes. So in rare cases, the FAA allows restricted activity or access to an airport to ensure that the airport remains efficient. So in other words, mixing of small aircraft and large aircraft actually introduces delays into the system for congested airports. And so the FAA has on occasion allowed larger airports with a lot of commercial activity to restrict access to those by smaller aircraft.
And do smaller aircraft or larger aircraft, what kind of aircraft make the most noise?
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, the overwhelming majority of our noise complaints at Palomar come from the small aircraft, from the propeller-driven aircraft.
Okay, that's all very helpful. Sorry, go ahead.
I apologize. I just wanted to give you so about only 10% of our noise complaints come from jet aircraft.
And is that because 90% of the flights are small aircraft, so the number of complaints are appropriate proportional to the percentage of flights, or is there a different denominator?
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, no, it's actually, so there's a good mix, it depends on the month, but it's generally around 40 to 60%, 60% propeller aircraft and 40% jets. However, propeller aircraft, we have a couple of flight schools in the area, and people that own smaller aircraft have to be able to practice takeoff and landings, and so they may stay in what we call the traffic pattern. It's just a circular pattern around the airport to practice takeoffs and landings. We receive a lot of complaints from those aircraft that are in the traffic pattern, whereas jets typically, they get on approach, they arrive, they land, and they taxi to parking. They don't spend any time in the pattern. And when they're taking off, they take off and they depart the area.
So it's very counterintuitive. The craft that are making the most noise are little local craft as opposed to the bigger jets.
Generally, that is correct, Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Okay, thank you so much for humoring me. And this is an issue that is just so incredibly important to so many people. And it's been back in front of the board a million times, and I want to make sure we get to the right decision. So I'd actually like to make a substitute motion to Supervisor Desmond's. I would like to go with instead of the 900 foot, I'd like to go with 200 foot on the airports on the runway. Still go with option B so that we can move towards improving safety, because obviously safety is a huge concern. We don't want to have aircrafts crashing on our watch. That would be very, very tragic. So I think, we definitely need to take action on the safety front, but we also want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect the very real and legitimate concerns around folks around noise. So I think the middle ground seems like the way to go, which is option B as proposed by Supervisor Desmond, but with the 200 foot instead of the 900 foot runway expansion. And then additionally add on to that we would submit a letter to the FAA and direct our legislative team to begin engaging in advocacy directed at the FAA, including engaging our local congressional delegation, and particularly our 49th representative, Mcclellan, on the two requests, which is one, to establish quiet hours, and I don't have a view on the specifics of quiet hours, but probably mirroring quiet hours at other airports, maybe 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. or something like that. But I don't want to be directive on that. I think looking at other airports and their quiet hours. And secondly, if we can't if they refuse to allow us to establish those quiet hours, then ask for permission to do increased costs and increased fees for aircrafts flying during those quiet hours.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And then the other options in your substitute motion remain the same, right?
We have to, if we're going to go ahead with B, we have to. Sorry, go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, 2A,
Sorry,
all of the recommendations in 3 And then 4 would be option B.
Hold on, let me double check this very long worksheet. So I have option on number 1, option B with 200 feet. Number 2, A. And the reason for that is because we need to approve a master plan or else we can't get any funding. And so I think, we want to be in line for the funding. 3, yes, 3, adopt. 4, B, which would be the sustainability plan for all the airports, including this one.
Okay. Let me ask, well, we've got a substitute motion. I guess we could ask the maker of the motion.
So I don't even know, was there a second for that?
No,
so we
but
even...
we didn't let it.
I mean, also, Supervisor Desmond, if you'd be amenable.
We got 3 people talking at once. Let's 3 people talking at once. 1 sec. Supervisor Wasserheimer, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Supervisor Desmond, if you'd be amenable, I'd also be happy to offer it as a friendly amendment to your motion. There's just 2 changes.
That would be my suggestion, to ask that first, if you'd be willing to go 200 instead of up to 900.
But yeah, Supervisor Desmond, if you'd be willing to go to 200 instead of 900, and then additionally add on the request to the FAA around quiet hours and potentially a fee structure if they wouldn't take it.
I would happily take those amendments. My only comment would be on the 200 feet. If they got to do 210 feet or whatever because of construction or whatever, I don't want somebody out there with a tape measure and saying, you went 201 feet. I guess 200 feet.
So maybe we give them 200 with maybe a 10% variance.
Yeah,
with some sort of a variance.
That is fine. I will take that. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Just because we don't want to.
I'm gonna challenge them to do as well on the variance as Ebony did on our budget yesterday.
Okay, and I want to say I appreciate your questions, as I forgot to say it. That the D3 aircraft are the less noisy ones. So thank you for pointing that out.
All right, so you're happy to accept that, Supervisor Wasserheimer. Would you like to second that motion?
I would.
Okay. So we now have a motion and a second for option 1B, number 2, 200 feet with an allowable variance of up to 10% if needed. Option 2A, all of the recommendations in 3, 4B, and then direction to staff to send a request to the FAA to allow us to establish quiet hours. And if they are not inclined to do that, to give us some flexibility around some of the charging options based on flights of time. That is presently our motion, and second on the floor. We'll go to Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I have a question of staff because some of the, I thought I had it fully understood, and then I learned some more, and I just want to make sure I understand. When we have a longer runway, people are allowed to take off sooner. Is there a possibility for these smaller planes that it would actually reduce the noise? Because if it would, let me tell you where I'm going first, so I'm not trying to put you in the crosshairs. But what I liked about up to 900 is I would rather have up to 900 and amend it to say if it demonstrates quieter for the communities. Where the 200, what I'm worried about is, does that help quiet? I'm not concerned about the length as much as the function it has on the community in what they have to endure. So that's where I'm going with the question, and I want to make sure you understood what I was thinking.
Supervisor Anderson, I think that your thought process is spot on. There is benefits from a noise perspective the longer the runway. That seems counterintuitive, but as we talked about earlier, it allows aircraft to take off sooner and get higher altitude before that they leave the boundary of the airport. And that is true whether it's a jet aircraft or a small aircraft.
You're right. I didn't think that was the case until my colleague was asking the questions and that came up, and I thought that was odd because I wouldn't have thought of that. I'd like to offer that a possible amendment, friendly amendment to this to take up to 900 if it can demonstrate the lower noise to the community. If it can't, wherever that distance is, then, but I agree with both of my colleagues that being better neighbors with the airport is a good thing. And so if we can lower the noise by extending the runway, I'm for that.
Okay, so let me ask. So we started at 900. We friendly amended it down to 200. Now we're offering another friendly amendment to return back to 900.
With the caveat, it would lead to lower noise.
I understood. I assume the maker of the motion would be fine with that, since that was your original motion.
Well, yes, but is there a sweet spot between the 2 and 9? I don't know. Because you're right.
It depends on the type. We're talking about B2 versus D3, and there's a great distinction if we're doing B2 versus D3, right?
But I think particularly the focus should be on the smaller, noisier airplanes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Chair Fletcher and Supervisor Desmond, to answer the question about the sweet spot, in this case, longer is better. The longer the runway, the more effects there are for reducing, or the potential for reducing noise. And to your point, Chair Fletcher, we are talking about, I understand the motion on the table is the B2 option. And so from our perspective, there's not necessarily a sweet spot. 200 feet would, from a noise perspective, would be negligible, but certainly the master plan evaluated the 800 and the 900 foot, and there is some more than negligible impacts to reducing noise.
Just quick follow-up on that. But you said the bulk of the complaints were from smaller planes that are circling. It's not inherently the takeoff and landing? You said the bulk of the noise complaints we get are from smaller planes that are circling and flying around the airport. So the bulk of the complaints are not from takeoff and landings.
Chair Fletcher, you're absolutely correct. We get very few, if any, complaints from takeoffs and landings.
So the length of the runway only impacts noise on takeoff and landing?
It impacts noise on departure, for departure. So
that's a small number of the total noise complaints. The bulk of the noise complaints are from airplanes flying in the general vicinity of the airport. Is that correct? Did I understand
that is correct. So but I want to be clear, so the overwhelming majority of our noise complaints are from small aircraft. Only about 10% are from jets. Now, that is not to say that we don't get noise complaints on their departure. There's a difference between, in my mind, than aircraft that are taking off or landing. That's the actual when they're over the runway. However, we do get noise complaints from jet aircraft on departure. So after a jet takes off and then starts to climb to altitude and departs the boundaries of the airfield, we get noise complaints on them.
Right. I guess my question, and I'm just trying to understand it, is out of the complaints we get, what percentage of those complaints are related to takeoff and landing, and what percent are related to aircraft activity after they've taken off or landed in the general area?
Chair Fletcher, I don't have the exact percentages of those and breakouts between, the aircraft that are in the traffic pattern as opposed to takeoff and landings. I will tell you that, again, about 10% of our noise complaints are from jet aircraft, and that's in the process of arrival and departure.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to go to Vice Chair Vargas, and then at some point we still have a request for a friendly amendment that will need to go to the seconder of the motion to get her take on. So, Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you. I just need clarification. So, if we have a motion on the floor that's 200 feet, if we or a 10%, right? If we approve that, if there needs to be a change to make it bigger, longer, the 900, 800 later, what's the process?
Vice Chair Vargas, the staff would have to come back to the board and have get direction from the board to move to a D3. Mm-hmm. So as I understand the motion on the floor is option B. So it would be B2 now and the potential for D3 later. That would direct staff to resolve the conditional use permit and then resolve the runway protection zone impacts, and then come back to the board for consideration of the D3.
And does that create challenges for the whole process? Is it going to delay things? could still move forward with what we have now, right? I mean, I'm just, I feel like we're complicating
I guess, Cam,
something.
the question is, all you have right here is a B2. So you probably, would you do more than 200 feet?
Chair Fletcher, no. From my perspective.
This is my point. You're going to have to come back to us if we want to go D3. And D3 is the point at which you might need more than 200 feet. So that was my original point, was given that we're only doing B2 today, 200 feet is probably all you would need with B2. If you want to go beyond 200 feet, that would be a part of a D3 conversation, which would be a topic for another day. But I want to confirm my understanding that is correct.
That is correct, Chair Fletcher.
So then why are we even
And I think I'm going to leave it at 200 feet primarily because the 200 feet is going to be on the existing runway.
That's right.
And when we go to D3, that 200 feet is throwaway, essentially, if we go on a new runway. And so let's leave it at the 200 right now.
10%
and
variant.
then we come back and we revisit this after we get some other things cleared up and going further with the D3. Okay. And so I'm going to leave it at 200
Seconder to the motion, you concur?
I completely agree.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. Everyone know what we're voting on? All right. Seeing no additional comments, please vote.
Oh, Chair Fletcher will be doing roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Damn. Thank you. Supervisor Anderson? Aye. Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to recess until 1:15. We will start at 1:15 sharp. Right at 1:15, we will take up item 7. And again, the goal is to get through those 3 items before 3 p.m. and then we'll go to closed session. So with that, we recess for lunch.